Project has recruited random Trump supporters in several close House districts to run as independent candidates. That could siphon Republican votes and boost Democratic candidates. This is according to a report in the Associated Press. First-term Iowa Republican Congressman Zach Nunn says the group tried to unseat him.
Democrats have stepped up their game to use truly shady tactics.
One conservative organization, Americans for Public Trust, and its executive director, Caitlin Sutherland, has filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission, accusing the group of violating campaign finance laws.
The level that they have gone to interfere in these key elections is astounding, and they should be held accountable for these actions.
Democratic Party campaign organizations say they have nothing to do with the Patriots Run project. House Democrats say they've never heard of the group, and that charges that Democrats are interfering in elections are nonsense. In Washington, Rich Edson, Fox News.
And good morning, Kevin Miller here, live from New York City. Let's go to Ryan Schmelz, joining us from Fox News Radio. Oh, always great to talk to Ryan. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. What's up?
Well, not much. You sound very excited to talk to us. Here we are at the, I won't say the birthplace of the United Nations, but we're at the United Nations Hotel, and we met kings and queens and diplomats of all ages. What about you?
Oh, well, that sounds better what I'm doing. I'm just sitting here in a office in D.C., twiddling my thumbs and talking to you. So, great day, isn't it?
I think this is going to be one of our epic interviews. Of course, Ryan with us from Fox News Radio. When you hear Fox News Radio, you're listening to KIDO Radio. This is one of our favorite things because it fluctuates with us because everybody wants to be the top of the power rankings in Idaho on the Kevin Miller program. And now Ryan's going to tell us about the Fox News power rankings. So it's all one and the same.
Right. Yes. Of course. We're less than a month away from Election Day. We're looking at a situation where, Vice President Harris is probably on the better track right now for getting the 270 to win. It looks like, if you go off of states that she's likely to win, 241 for the Electoral College versus Trump's 219. But when you look at all the states that are currently tossed up right now, you got 78 Electoral College votes that are still up for grabs. So we're looking at states in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona.
Well, what do we attribute this to? Or is this just a regular fluctuation of the polls?
Well, one thing we did see that was a positive for Harris, and this is why Georgia, it looks like, is becoming a state that is considered a toss-up as opposed to, a lean R state as it was a couple months ago, is because Harris, according to our poll, has closed the gap on the biggest issue, which is the economy. Trump still has the edge on that issue, and he's had the edge in a number of polls, but that margin is now down to 47 to 51 in the state of Georgia, and that's really helping Vice President Harris when it comes to, making the odds a little more in her favor. Arizona, we actually saw a situation where Harris had a plus 13 advantage when it came to young people, one of the biggest demographics for Democrats. That's now a 12-point deficit for her. So that's quite a shift.
Yeah, it is. Of course, these things fluctuate all the time. But Georgia is such a unique state because of the contentious relationship between the governor and the former president. Of course, now disaster relief. They had that uncomfortable press conference last week. I'm sure Governor Kemp, who, is one of the most astute politicians in the nation, is doing everything that he can to get those numbers up. And it's odd, even though Donald Trump has radically changed the Republican Party, the state of Georgia at one time was reliably red.
It was the state of Arizona, and those states have radically shifted. I think one thing is the Senate races have been a huge issue for Republicans, and, I've had Democrats tell me it's candidate quality. That's why Democrats have been so successful in these states. Republicans, they feel, have run bad candidates. Democrats have run what they feel are very good candidates. And, Mark Kelly was considered to be a very strong candidate last election cycle. He was running for re-election. He won over Blake Masters, who was considered to be a candidate who was a liability. Matter of fact, Blake Masters couldn't even win his House seat out of the primary recently. That was in a deep red area. So that's going to be filled by somebody else, it looks like. And then you take this current election cycle, where you have Carrie Lake, who's considered to be a liability as a candidate, going against Ruben Gallego, who's a sitting congressman, considered to be a relatively strong candidate. And right now the polling looks like it's in Gallego's favor. And then couple that with Georgia, which has, been a state where, Republicans do have a strong candidate in Brian Kemp as the governor, and he's been able to win re-election by a pretty strong margin. But, you go back to the 2020 where Republicans lost both Senate elections, and then you come back a couple years later, they run Herschel Walker against Raphael Warnock, and that was another liability, and it ended up being a big loss for Republicans, and one of the reasons why Democrats still have control of the Senate.
Yeah, that Herschel Walker race really stunned me because, Ryan, I'm a tad bit older than you, but I was a little boy in Georgia when Herschel Walker was the beloved figure on the University of Georgia Bulldogs, one of your favorite teams of all time, I know. And, he was just so universally popular in that state. You would think that just that alone, of course, he had a couple of issues that people, brought up. Your personal life is your personal life. And it's amazing to me that Herschel Walker didn't win that seat.
It's one of those things where he had a number of skeletons that were in his closet that got brought into a bigger, more national spotlight than ever before because he was getting into the world of politics and not just the world of sports. And I think also, he made some controversial statements or some head-scratching statements on the campaign trail, which also brought a lot of negative news. And, of course, Raphael Warnock was an incumbent, so that always helps, too. So he had a number of different things that were working against him that just, the popularity that he already had or the name recognition he already had just couldn't make up for.
Indeed. Anything else we should be looking out for?
Ooh, on the campaign trail? Margin of error in the House is going to be very slim. Make sure you look out for that. This is something where every single race is going to matter. There's a lot of little factors that play in, whether it's a controversy, whether it's candidate quality. But I'm happy to come on some other time. We can get down to the nitty-gritty of some of these House races.
Wow. You're going to leave us with a tease.
Of course. A tease. And if we never follow up on it, I'll be very disappointed. It'll be like all those WWE Easter eggs they put out and they never follow up on over the last decade or so.
No truth to the rumor that you're going to New York to become the new coach of the Jets.
No, unfortunately, no. I don't know if I'd want that job. I'd be fired within 2 games. It's like it's not an attractive job, Kevin. I mean, it's one of those there's a couple of teams right now where it's kind of like just a huge red flag for them as an organization. The Browns, I think, are one of them. Jets and the Panthers. The Lions used to be under that cloud, but they look like they're kind of out of it right now because they've been consistently good over the last 2 years. But the Jets, the Browns, and the Panthers, those are some head scratching organizations right now.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, we always appreciate you. It's been great to be on your coast. It's great to be on with you at 8:13 as opposed to 6:13. But that will end for me tomorrow as we go back to our beloved Idaho. Yes, as you can tell, I just woke up, so it's a great progress.
You enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you. Our great friend Ryan Schmelz is joining us. Good morning once again. Kevin Miller, if you haven't been listening to us in a little while, we are here east of the Great River in the heart of Midtown Manhattan or East Manhattan or whatever it is. Getting ready to come home. We've been here for a couple days, getting ready for the NAB Marconi Awards. I appreciate everybody wishing us well and hoping that we win. It would be 10 years to the day that we won the first one, our only one. It's an award that awards people for their service in radio, the best of the best. It's the equivalent of the Final Four, the Heisman Trophy, or whatever you want to call it. But it's always great to appreciate what you have. And one of those, your dad or your mom used to say this, you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And no, we're not leaving Idaho, but as I've said before, and having been in Idaho, a short time, 15 years, Idaho ruins you for a lot of people. It ruins you when your relatives visit. It ruins you when you're on airplanes. Another adventure of myself this morning, we went down to get some coffee at the coffee shop. And it's fascinating when you're down there at the coffee shop and there's a line and somebody gets mad and somebody storms off, and just like you see in the movies or the sitcoms, and you go, dude, it's too short. It's too early to be so angry. And you don't really get that in Idaho. You get, people going out of their way to help people, to make it a better place. And here it's very different. In fact, I was talking to actually somebody who was actually friendly in Idaho. As you know, they call it Idaho nice, and it's not being, it's not a cliche. It's how people are. So I was talking to one of the workers here, one of the few that are Native Americans, native-born Americans, not Native Americans, but he was born in this country, and I've always had a thing, and I'm sure it would get me in trouble if we elaborated on it. I think that everybody born in this country, this is your country, so you would be a Native American, but let's not get into that because we don't want to be mired in any type of politically correct consequences, and we want to respect everybody and move on and move on and move on. So I was talking to him, and I said, hey, man, what's going on? And it's the first time the Hey Man offense is worked. And what do you mean the Hey Man? Well, when you look like the rambling tribute legacy of Jerry Garcia, usually people are disarmed by you. You're not a threatening presence. You're not a intimidating presence. You're just a presence. So I was talking to this gentleman on the way back up, and I said, hey, man, you got like a lot of pretentious people here. And he goes, you should have seen this Monday and we came in on Monday. You should have seen this 2 weeks ago. And I go, 2 weeks ago? And he said, yeah. Because on the second floor, they have a conference room. And he goes, it's funny. This is where you and me and the Kevin Miller program on KIDO Talk Radio rank. We're not at any hotel. It was confirmed to me by one of the hardworking maintenance workers. And as a maintenance worker alumni, we have a bond. We're a band of brothers. And I said to him, brother, well, I didn't say brother, but it's early. I said, brother, what do you mean? And he said, look, 2 weeks ago, you couldn't get into this place. As I said before, when we approached the room, when we approached the facility, we had the bomb-sniffing dog. They kind of look you over. Some people like me, they look over more than once. But they say I'm more of a caricature of a person, not a real person, then they let you in. And I was talking to him. He said, yeah, no, we had the kings and the queens, and I guess the second floor here is where they all meet. And I'm going, and it really looks like a replica of what you see on television with the United Nations. And so I'm sitting there looking at that going, wow, that's pretty wild. And he said, yes, it's, the UN and, everything else. And I'm thinking to myself, you have the kings and queens, and you look at one of these people the wrong way, they can get you fired because that's just how it works here. And I thought with all the facilities they have over there, I guess they want to come down here and, meet the nice lady in the morning that threw me out of the breakfast area yesterday. And, they have negotiations, so it was quite humbling to be here. And it's not about me. It's about I represent you, because without you listening, without you going, dude, is this guy just going to mumble all about himself? No, it's called entertainment. It's called trying to be relatable. But anyway, I wouldn't be here. So we will do our very best to give you the best show possible. Why don't we start with some content here with the App Yap Club? Let's see. Herschel Walker was an awesome player at the University of Georgia. I was stationed at Fort Stewart during his time in the mid-'80s. Well, Mike, you really lived, because I was a little boy in the mid-'80s, and Herschel Walker, like early 80s, he was just the greatest college football player that I've ever seen. You'd rather listen to a liberal loon from Arizona than read my text. Shame, Eric in Payette. Thank you, Eric in Payette. Kevin, as you near the UN, could you have a bucket labeled Helene Relief USA at your radio setup? We have been supporting the UN forever, and they cannot put $1 million of checks in the bucket. That's a very good point, Mike, when we think about that. Let's see, Eric and Payette responding to Dave Petzo yesterday. Hey, Kevin, with Dave's outlook, all the crashing, that's highly intelligent guesstimate, then why the heck would we have the Petzo brain not vote for Trumpity Trump? He says the Biden-Harris regime is not the answer, yet refuses to say Trump is the answer. Come on, Dave. That's just malarkey, and maybe the lying dog-faced pony needs to take you out back. Wow, man. Glenn in Nampa. Kevin, Kamala's lying about owning a gun. You can tell by the nervous cackle. It's obvious she knows nothing about guns. Her saying she owns a Glock is like saying she drives a Ford. She's a chameleon, trying to be everything to everyone. All she's doing is showing how desperate and fake she is. God help us if she wins next month. Gun-toting Glenn in Nampa. I think Elon Musk said something along the lines of, if she wins, I'm so hosed. But I think he used another verb. And we could all agree on that. By the way, please keep those folks that are recovering and that are trying to recover from the hurricane in your prayers. And as we get ready, I think it hits tomorrow morning, the big one, in Tampa, and people are moving out. And you think to yourself, you know, as you're waking up, as you're doing your own thing, you're thinking to yourself, by the grace of God, there go I. And I think, what would it take to be told that you have to leave your home? You know, we are so blessed to live in Idaho, and that's one of the reasons why we have the big tech and everybody there and all sorts of things. But to leave your home and be told you have to go, and that, you know, we played the clip of the mayor of Tampa yesterday where she said, if you stay, you're dead. And people just aren't messing around. You know, and we're so glad to see that a lot of people are taking this seriously, like including the vice president. Now, yesterday, Lars Larson, if you missed it, we always have the award-winning podcast. It's not really award-winning, but we kind of play with facts, and loose a little earlier in the morning. So Lars Larson was talking about her being on this disruptive podcast called, you know, Call Me the Daddy, or Call Me Daddy. And basically what it is a girl that talks about premarital or marital relations. It's from the folks that, you know, she got her start at Barstool Sports, very popular with the young people. And look, if you want to make a lot of money, there are a couple things you can do. You can go into adult entertainment. You can have a potty mouth, and you can swear and do all sorts of things, and you can build a pretty big online audience quickly, like this young lady. And it's primarily already targeted towards women 18 to 24. And it's a very popular show. So she goes on there, and then she goes on The View. And then last night she has a beer with, what's his name? Stephen Colbert. And somebody made the point, it was Ainsley Earhart this morning on Fox and Friends. If I'm one of these people that, you know, I'm about to lose everything or have lost everything, I'd be very, very upset. Well, the good thing is for them, they can't watch television. You know, that's the funniest thing. And it really tells you the power of radio and the power of spoken word radio. And what I mean is, we all think that television is ubiquitous or the phone is ubiquitous. And obviously it was a once in 100 year storm that knocked everything out. And you have a guy in North Carolina, I think his name's Matt. He's working with our friend John Mounts, who has been on the air nonstop informing people. And, you know, people go, well, the television goes away. The radio stays with you. That's why we fight every day to keep a local presence on this station in this state, because it is invaluable. So we have people saying that now we have, you know, how many people are really taking this seriously? And here we have Jimmy Kimmel.
Trump once made a senior aide leave the room so he could have a private call with Putin, which, hello, Donald, what are you wearing? I'm shirtless on my horse again. And this is quite a detail. During the height of the pandemic, right around the time Trump was trying to get us to stop testing for COVID because the high numbers were making him look bad, Agent Orange secretly sent his buddy Vlad a shipment of hard-to-get COVID testing machines for his personal use. You wouldn't want one of the most villainous murderers on the planet to get a cough, would you? But Bob Woodward reported that Putin said, please don't tell anybody you sent these to me. Trump said, I don't care, fine. And Putin said, I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me. They don't care about me. And you know you aren't too bright when Vladimir Putin has to help you with PR. Can you imagine? I mean, nurses, doctors, American hospitals couldn't get these machines. He's sending them to the devil himself.
You know, by the way, it's interesting when you take a look at Jimmy Kimmel Productions, that this is a speculation from the Bob Woodward book. And I don't even know why people go with Bob Woodward, but this is what they're talking about. Where's the sympathy for the Americans? Where's the sympathy for people without their medicine, without their sense of security, without their comfort? Can you imagine if all of a sudden we had to evacuate our state? How would that make you feel? If all of a sudden you couldn't stay in your home? And Lord, please, I'll be selfish. Please let that not happen to us. But your insurance won't cover it. You're effectively done. And you have people that, you know, the state of the game in Florida is what, 1,300 gas stations. And remember, Florida has a lot more infrastructure, a lot more people than we do. They're without gas. They ran out. It just shows you how fragile our whole supply chain is and why we need to be thankful to God and to pray for those less fortunate. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDU. I do want to tell you something about our friends at Team Mazda. We really love them. Did you know it's Cash for Cars Month, and it's continuing now at Team Mazda in the pre-owned superstore. Aaron and Joel, as we know, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, they were at the old Kmart at Karcher Road. I was going to say Karcher Mall, but that's a day that was long ago and far away. They were out there working, getting people's cars, pre-owned cars, new cars, low interest rate cars, good cars. Well, their quest to get you a good car, a great car, a better car continues. If you got a car you're willing to trade, take it to Team Mazda and get a free cash quote. Now, if you're looking to trade your old car, only Team offers you the following two guarantees: 130% of book value, or a $2,000 minimum if it's a push, pull, drag, or clunker. Whether you want to sell for cash, trade for new, get a free, no-obligation quote from Team before you agree to any other offer. And if you haven't heard yet, the Feds recently lowered interest rates that triggered all new lower rates at Team Mazda to 3.9%. Now, that's for 60 months on Mazda 3, CX-5, and CX-90, including hybrids. Choose a Mazda CX-50, and it's 2.9% financing for 60 months. I don't know if anybody can really beat that. That means Team Mazda has 115 new Mazdas on the lot you can finance at 3.9 or less for 60 months. Low interest rates and cash for cars at Team Mazda in the pre-owned superstore on the Boulevard or online at goteammazda.com. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. So here we have Jimmy Kimmel, not to be confused with Stephen Colbert, making fun of Donald Trump and all sorts of things. And then we have Colbert, instead of really, and I get this, you know, they're trying to, just like everything else, you think to yourself, which is really weird, you think to yourself, I would be focusing in on, you know, how to help people. But these guys are worried about their job. These guys are worried about keeping their multi-million-dollar homes on the Hamptons. And so it's all about entertainment. And we'll talk a little bit about that next. You won't believe what the vice president did on late night television. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 436-580-KIDO. Appreciate you joining us. Again, we were talking a little bit about Kamala Harris, and she was on Stephen Colbert. And really, the late night shows, besides Greg Gutfeld, seem to be going away, but she had a beer. Now, remember, we disclosed that she has a Glock, which apparently now she could be in trouble for, but she's really trying to be Barack Obama, if you will. Let's take a listen.
Hold one. The vibe election. All the vibes were all good. But elections, I think, are won on vibes because one of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. Uh-huh. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was... Now, we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked for Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, so cheers.
Cheers.
There you go.
Yeah, Miller High Life. I guess that's good beer. I've never had a beer in my life. Never. That would explain a lot. Your lack of sense of humor, your lack of talent, your lack of a thing. No, I've never had a beer. But here we have Kamala saying Miller High Life. Again, everything is scripted with her. And apparently Colbert said that they didn't spring this on her ahead of time. She knew about it. She knew that she was going to get a beer from Colbert. And what are we supposed to say? Like, oh my goodness, this is great. This is wonderful. We're going to have a vice president that drinks a beer that, remember the old saying that, you know, who would you rather have a beer with? Barack Obama or John McCain? Mitt Romney or Barack Obama? And this is where it is. This is what the liberal media is trying to do. They're trying to package something. And of course, Donald Trump, President Trump, you know, a lot of people, they don't like negative. They don't like people that tell it like it is. It's easier to be one of those people that are positive. You know, the guy at work that, hey, how's it going? Well, we've got a lot of extra work to do today, but the coffee machine's working. Always the eternal optimist. That'd be one thing if they were competent. Kamala Harris is not competent, but please don't sell us Miller High Life. And I'm sure Miller High Life is a great beer, or Coors, or what is it, the beer from the other country, Moderna, whatever it is that people think that is so great right now. And he's, walking and stalking people at the college football games, which is a little creepy to me. It's like the guy, Rip, is it, from Yellowstone? And Rip is going to beat you up or give you a beer. I don't know if that's going to sell a lot of beers for Moderna or Modelo or whatever it's called. Give me the old Miller Lite from the old days. And again, I don't drink, but do we really want a president who is going to say she's going to have a beer and trying to be relatable? Some people just aren't relatable. Look, and maybe you're one of these people, like a real man, like Glenn or Patriot Ray or Tea Party Bob, and you guys are real men. I, unfortunately, am more like a George Costanza, Jerry Seinfeld, what have you. And you have to just know your role. But you have respect for people. You don't try to be a poser. What we're doing here is we're electing a poser. We'll talk about it next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Thank you for starting your day with us. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO travel day tomorrow. We'll be back in studio on Friday. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, my apologies. I didn't see you holding. Thank you for joining us on KIDO Talk Radio.
Well, it's okay, Kev. You're across the United States. You're in an important place called New York City. That's where my family was kind of based when they came over from the other world 3 centuries ago. Yeah, it's good to hear you. I was told that you weren't going to be able to take calls until Wednesday, so I waited until now. But I heard from Subaru Jerry that wasn't the case yesterday, so my apologies for either mishearing what was told to me or whatever.
Well, I said, I wonder where Paulie is. I guess he's giving us the Heisman.
No. Yeah, posing. Yeah.
Right.
I watched that. I didn't watch the show, but I saw the outtakes of Kamala taking a sip off of Miller High Life. I know we're not supposed to probably say that on radio, but you know what? It reminded me so much of Elizabeth Warren taking a sip off of a beer that she told her husband to get out of the fridge, like she had a bunch laying around. And it was just so phony and so staged. It was, it was beyond funny. But we miss you over here. How'd you do?
We'll find out tonight.
Okay. All right. I'll be waiting.
Well,
who are you up against? Who are you up against? That's what I wanted to know.
It's funny. This is the first year I really haven't studied everybody. I know there's a couple of guys in Texas that do a high school football show. They are perennial nominees. They weren't here last year. They're very dedicated. And a couple of music shows that I'm probably not familiar with. So one's in country radio, one's in sports radio. And for people listening at home, one of the reasons why we're here, a lot of people know this is our 4th year in a row being nominated for the Marconi Awards, which go to the best person in the country in radio in certain market categories. Our size is media market, so we're here hanging out in New York at the UN and trying to do a show, and hopefully we can bring it home for everybody. It's just an honor, privilege to be representing Idaho.
Yeah, we are well represented by you. Somebody that, of course, it's going to be a little jaded, but I just soon see you win. I've said it before.
Well, thank you. I'd like to see me win, too.
Well, you do a lot for the community, and some people don't realize that. Of course, you do most of the stuff you do it stealthily. We don't see it, and we don't hear it, but you get it done. And it affects a lot of lives around here. Maybe some lives that people might think that it's not worth saving, but you make it worthwhile watching and worth being a part of in different areas of that service type of area. And so, I can speak for all of us and say that, we're just proud of you that you're back there and that you were acknowledged as to who and what you are, and that's a professional in the business that you work.
Well, Thank you, Paulie. That means a lot. I appreciate you.
Well, I know it's coming from me, but maybe we should hear from Tea Party Bob or somebody else.
I don't even know if he's up yet, but we'll see how that plays out with that gentleman. Paulie, anything else?
Yeah, just have a safe trip, and don't invite too many of them on the plane because they affect you twice as hard as they do up in the air as they do on the ground. It's harder to walk.
Well, no, the only thing I had was the lasagna, and it wasn't very good. And my body let me know that a few hours later. So, no fears there, friend.
Okay, we'll see you. You have a great trip.
Thank you, Paulie. You take care. Our great friend Paulie in Nampa. Let's go back to the phones. Cowboy Calvin joins us now from New York City. Good morning, Cowboy Calvin.
Good morning, Mr. Miller, and good morning, New Yorkers. Kevin, I'm proud of you for being where you're at, and congratulations for being a nominee. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Paulie. Thank you, Cowboy Calvin, and appreciate you and Paulie, and appreciate your friendship over the years.
Well, I wish you the very best there. A couple questions. Do those New Yorkers still think we're fighting Indians out here in Idaho?
They, I was wearing my Idaho shirt, and they just kind of looked at me, and it was very strange. And we've been to New York City several times, representing Idaho and representing KIDO Talk Radio, and this is the most unique place that I can say I've been, and I've been to the White House, I've been to Congress, I've been to war zones. But you think about what it takes to be a diplomat, and this isn't a knock, it's an observation. The ego involved, where you're dealing with things at such a high level, and this is really the place where these people go, and King such and such and President blah, 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 they stay where we are, literally, which is, the old Sesame Street thing. One of these things doesn't belong. It would be your boy Kay Millie.
Well, you are a king of Idaho, Kevin, so you deserve being there.
Well, I'll accept that if you change the title to Jester. I think I'm more qualified to be a jester, but I appreciate you, Cowboy Calvin.
Well, I also another question I got. A friend of mine just moved. A very dear friend just moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that anywhere near that storm?
Mm-hmm. No, actually, I used to live in Raleigh in a bedroom community called Knightdale, North Carolina. One of the best places to live in America. It's one of the three liberal places in North Carolina. One is Charlotte, one is Raleigh, one I believe is Wilmington, if I'm not mistaken, or Asheville, the place that was hit by the devastation. But Raleigh is one of the best cities to live in America. The only challenge with Raleigh is you have a lot of people from the north, and it's not as southern as you think it would be, but it's a really great city. I was very blessed that they had a Kevin Miller Day there when I left. Not that they were glad that I was leaving, but they actually proclaimed it, Mayor Meeker at the time proclaimed it Kevin Miller Day. So very nice people, very close to the niceness that you're going to receive here in Idaho.
Well, we'll have to celebrate that up here, have a Kevin Miller Day.
It's funny. We tried to get the Governor Otter to do that when we won 10 years ago, and just never came to being. Every day is Kevin Miller Day. We get to talk to you, Cowboy Calvin, and Paulie and the gang.
Well, one thing I want to throw in here is, the news came out that Trump was giving Putin a test kit, but I'd like to say that Biden has given the terrorists food and meds. So what's the difference?
Aid and comfort to the enemy, you could argue. Yeah.
Okay. Well, isn't it a two-way street?
Well, I think people they want to make a big deal out of these things, and you have to be careful with what you say and how you say it. So this is a world at crisis. Did Donald Trump give him some technology? Okay. Maybe that was buying good faith and goodwill. Aren't we supposed to talk to people? I know Putin behaved under Donald Trump. But, Putin is bad. And remember, Cowboy Calvin, you're a historian, so you remember when Mitt Romney warned of Putin during the Barack Obama administration, and Obama goes, go back to the 1980s and your foreign policy. And Mitt Romney was right. And, Catherine Crowley from CNN was, jumped on, Romney as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just so blatantly unfair. They want us to be discouraged, but we can't be discouraged. We've got to understand what we're fighting for, what we're arguing against. And, that whole Reagan-esque thing of hope and growth and opportunity. Cowboy Calvin, anything else before we go back to the grind here?
Yeah, I want to make a comment about Kamala Harris. She talked about her height being 5'3". Well, I think that's her IQ number.
Cowboy Calvin, God bless you. Thank you for the call. Hey, coming up a special treat today, we have our friend, thank you, Cowboy Calvin and Paulie. Really appreciate your comments. By the way, I want to thank our friends, Mike Tracy, who will join us. And then at 9 o'clock, it's a return of an old friend, Greg Pruitt. Greg Pruitt has created the Idaho Dispatch, then he sold it, now he's bought it back, an independent news source. Greg's done one thing I love about Greg is he spends money, probably money that he could spend somewhere else, like making Greg's life better, but he always sacrifices. So Greg Pruitt will join us, and he's got a poll about Prop 1 that he's going to release tomorrow, but we're going to get it today. We're going to look forward to catching up with our old friend Greg Pruitt. And you're going to go, well, who's Greg Pruitt? Remember the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. That is his organization. So we look forward to hearing what he has to say coming up. A lot going on today. We would love for you to join us. If you would love to give us a call, great. If not, we appreciate you listening. Don't forget Sean Hannity today at 1. He does take calls. He is live on KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio.
Your morning cup of Sean. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
And she's now doing this media burst. Now, I'm telling you one of the reasons she's doing it. This is not happening in a vacuum. And I mean this. They're doing this because her internal poll numbers have got to be bad. We see that almost all of the betting sites have shifted dramatically to Donald Trump. And the lack of any polling that we haven't seen. We saw one poll yesterday. The Yahoo poll came out. It was even at 47-47. Okay, the lack of polls indicates to me that these pollsters, even that favor Kamala Harris, they're not even able to spin the numbers in a way that would be helpful to her, so they're not publishing, because they'd never go this long without it.
The conservative underground meets later today on the Sean Hannity Show.
Hey everyone, Biden may have dropped out of the race, but he's not done just yet. Will he jam through his hidden tax trap at the last second right before he goes? Where he could raid your retirement funds, supercharge your income taxes, increase your utility and gas prices? I know my family's feeling it really hard, and so are the people in my community. And not only that, he'll inflate costs on things that you need to live. Some or all of this could affect you or your family in one way or another. So if you want to wait and see, you may as well kiss your retirement savings goodbye. The good news is you can get prepared, but you better hurry. Reach out to Goldco today to learn how precious metals could help protect yourself and your family. They're offering you a free 2024 gold and silver kit, plus up to a 10% instant match in bonus silver on qualified accounts. All you have to do is visit HannityGold.com. Visit HannityGold.com. That's HannityGold.com.
Paid for by Goldco.
Let's go to Lee Joe, who has a lovely statement that he would like to make so early in the morning. It's always a blessing when you get Lee Joe in the first hour of the program, filled with excitement, enthusiasm. Always a pleasure to have Lee Joe with us, or as Brian and Nampa likes to call him, Leroy. Good morning, Lee Joe on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, sir. You know, I meant to call in yesterday, but if I don't call early anymore, it's over. I got phone calls and fires to put out. Half the time I'm only getting half the show anymore. One of those problems with, having a job and having responsibilities, I guess. The topic of the moment is one Judge Diane Walker of Ada County. In our Ada County courthouse, we have a lot of judges who power trip every day, but this one's a little on the extra side, like a lot. She keeps handing off custody of children to the actual abuser. And there's multiple families who have joined together in hope of getting everyone to vote no on retaining Diane Walker. This lady has, every time that there's something that brings her into the limelight for the actions that she's done against families, she seals court hearings, and most of these family lawyers do this, our family judges do this a lot, sealing it for the protection of the children. But there's many cases where they just don't want anybody to know what they're doing inside there to the children, or with the lawyers' connivances that are happening that are actually an embarrassment to what we call the justice system. And I'll send you a few links and you can work on it yourself. But this one's out of control, and it's one of those things nobody is ever going to talk about. Judge Diane Walker, and it's never going to be something.
So now she's running for re-election. Is that right?
That's it. On the ballot when you see shall so and so be retained.
Yep.
Yeah, one of those. Mm-hmm. One of those. So do not retain Judge Walker. That's my first piece of stuff. I don't really have.
Oh wow, you have more.
I don't really have a second one prepared for you, but I'm just saying, I'm like you. I don't need the president shilling beer, trying to be folksy. I think, I haven't had a beer either, ever, whole life. So why, what is it that makes it so that I gotta listen to Kamala Harris drink her Miller High Life? I could understand if she was drinking a Bud Light. Isn't that the woke beer?
Right. That would make sense. Lee Joe, I got to run. Thank you for the call. Remember, the comments, views, and opinions are opinions here on Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Fighting with Mike Tracy, but alongside Mike Tracy, Idaho's premier political consultant, in my opinion. Mike, great to have you with us on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, Kevin, it's always good to be on with you.
Well, Mike, I can't wait to delve into what you think about politics and take us behind the scenes of all the big action. But if people are looking for someone that can help them, that can guide them, whether it's a business campaign, whether it's a political campaign, you're a veteran of both. What would you do? How can people reach out and get a hold of Mike Tracy?
The easiest way is for them to call or text me at 208-863-3940. That's the absolute best way to get a hold of me, 208-863-3940.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate Mike Tracy being here. Let me throw you off, and you're going to, oh gosh, I'm up early, and this guy, I just got done with my workout. He's going to throw me off. I promise not to do it too much, but a lot of us are feeling fatigued. We can't wait for these elections, and then we can't wait for them to be over, and then we can't wait for them to start up again. What's it like for people like Mike Tracy that are involved in the Harris and Trump campaign, or even the ranked choice voting campaign in the state of Idaho? What's that like right now for them?
Well, it's exhausting. If they've been behind the scenes and working for whether it's a campaign or an issue, campaign for a client, they've been leading up to this last 60 days, this last 30 days, and these are the last really intense days of the campaign. And the campaign workers are pretty wore out, but they're also very excited about getting to election day and having the ability to say, okay, we know that this is the end. And that's the thing that is always surprising is what the finality feels like when you get to November 5th and then November 6th. You know, that finality is really something that you look forward to. But leading up to that, you've been working on this as a full-time job plus lots of overtime. And I know because I worked on enough campaigns to know how many days and how many hours and blood, sweat, and tears you put into a campaign. And I've worked on some campaigns that have lasted for a year and a half. So you can imagine the intensity of those campaigns and really working with somebody who is dedicated and willing to do the work. A candidate's willing to do that. And I've done one of those recently, and it's exhausting. It really is. And, you know, if the candidate's willing to do that, whoever's working with the candidate needs to be doing that as well. So it can be exhausting, especially when you're trying to do other things besides the campaign. But if you get involved in a big campaign like a governor's race or something along those lines, a U.S. Senate race, you pretty much take that on full time. So I would say exhaustion is what a lot of people are feeling at this point.
Yeah, and Mike, that's where some people could make mistakes. I don't know if you heard about this. It happened overnight, but you had Kamala Harris drinking a Miller High Life. As a person who loves politics and has made his living in politics with Stephen Colbert, what do you make of her announcing her love for Miller High Life as her beer of choice?
Well, I actually saw the clip, and I didn't think much of it. It's trying to make her the regular Joe, the regular person, I guess. I didn't think much of it at all. Why would you try to pretend to be something that you're not? Like politicians always do that and step outside their path and the road that they're on and try to take on things that just doesn't suit them. And that's what that looked like to me. Is, you know, you've never seen anything like that before. People who are trying to be a regular Joe have tried that tactic a lot over the years, and with some people it works and some people it doesn't. It didn't really work that well last night.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder about the silliness of it all, and that she carries a Glock, and does that really matter, Mike?
She said she carried a Glock, and then the next part of it should be what kind? What kind of Glock? And have you used it? And have you been trained on it? Those kinds of things. It doesn't really matter. I mean, people don't. You know, this is a Second Amendment country. Anybody should be able to own a gun legally, and those who have them legally, great. Those that have them illegally, they shouldn't have them. It's as simple as that. And you know, for her to make this big statement about her having a gun, it doesn't seem to be of any real benefit to anyone other than her trying to make herself, again, look like a regular person because she carries a gun or if she has a gun. She didn't say whether she carried it or not. She just said she had one. And you wonder what kind she might actually have and what it is if she doesn't even know what the numbers are behind it. So I don't think that kind of stuff makes much sense at all. And I would just say, let's not talk about those things that are not relevant to the campaign you're trying to make yourself look better simply by hanging these little tropes around me and say, see, I'm a regular person. No, she's not.
Mike Tracy joining us. The big movement in Idaho, obviously, is this ranked choice voting. Besides the people that you know and you know very well, are people really into this issue, do you think?
You know, I think there's some people that are really into it. Obviously, the people who are promoting it are really into it. They're spending a lot of money to try to get it passed. but it's going to be really far down on the ballot. And, you know, I think I mentioned to you before that not a lot of people really know how to vote on this thing because they don't really understand it. And when they get down to that, it's going to be either at the end of the ballot or very close to the end of the ballot. There's going to be a lot of what's known as an undervote. If people don't know what it is or care about what it is, they're not even going to fill that box in, and they'll just leave it going leave it blank. That kind of thing happens all the time with people voting. At the very top of the ticket, you've got the president, and then as they go down the ticket, they vote on fewer and fewer as they go through the ballot. And sometimes you can have, at the end of the ballot, you can have as much as 70% undervote, meaning 70% of the people that, of the ballot that they filled out was less than at the beginning of that ballot. So it's a strong undervote when you've got a 3 or 4 page ballot, which we're going to have this year. And so people are involved in it, but a lot of people don't know how to vote. And the advertising that's coming out is overwhelming to people. And a lot of people just say, I don't know what this is about. And they're just going to throw their hands up. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who just aren't even going to fill out that box.
Yeah, which will be to the consternation of a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this. Mike, let's get your thoughts on ranked choice voting. Do you think that it passes, and the consequences or perhaps the benefits of it if it does? Well, I look at California and how it's worked there, and I don't think it's worked very well there. And I don't think it's worked all that well in Alaska. And I don't know the other states that might have it right now, but just the disaster that it's been in California, to me, tells me that we should lean toward not voting for it, not supporting it, because there's a lot of problems with it, and it gets rid of a lot of things that we in Idaho like to have. And for some group from the outside to come in and say, here's what you need to have, we think our way is better than your way, even though we're from out of state. We want you to change the way you're doing this so you're more like some of these other states. Well, that's not how it works. People in Idaho don't like to be told what they're going to do or what they should do. What they really want is they want a clear explanation of why ranked choice voting should be supported. I don't support it. And the biggest reasons is that the current system works. And why mess with something if it's not broke? If it's truly broke, show us what those items are that are broken, and they try to point those things out in their advertising, but it's just a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of meat to the bone when they describe why they think there should be a change. So my opinion is that it's not going to be anything good for the state, and it's going to be a lot of work to change that. It's going to be a lot of work for the legislature. It's going to be a lot of work for the Secretary of State. Not that they shouldn't do the work if that's the will of the people, but I think the will of the people is going to be one of confusion as they look at this on the ballot and say, what do I know about this? And I mean, if I was telling somebody what to do, I'd say vote no on ranked choice voting, because it is not necessarily the best thing for our state. Our friend Mike Tracy joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's move on to a couple of other issues. And that has to be, and I'm enamored with this race in Montana. What's the difference politically between the Senate race in Montana, between Montana and Idaho, sir? Well, Montana, it's interesting. They've had some Democrats at the helm on and off for several years. John Tester has been one of those outliers where he's a Democrat senator, U.S. senator from that state, and has been there for quite a while.
and he's really in jeopardy. The Republican that's come after him is up by anywhere from 5 to 7 points from what I've seen. And Tester I think he's in real trouble. I think this time around, especially with Trump on the ballot, he's going to be knocked out. And the combination of that particular race, along with the West Virginia pickup, if everything else remained the same, the Senate goes immediately over to the Republican Party, and they will be the majority. It would go from 51-49 Democrat to 51-49 Republican. So that seat's a big deal. And Montana is similar to Idaho, but not exactly like it. We are very red, and all of our constitutional officers and all of our congressional delegation have been Republicans since 1994. And that's a long time, 30 years. The Republican Party has been in charge of pretty much everything, every one of the major seats. Plus, we've had super majorities in both the Idaho House and the Idaho Senate, and which means that essentially the Democrats don't even have any kind of minority that can rustle up enough votes for anything. Montana's had enough Democrats in there to break through that, and they've had Democrat governors, they've had Tester, and they've had others that have kind of broken the mold to the western states like Idaho and Utah, and previously to Colorado. Colorado turned from red to purple to blue pretty quickly, and I worry about that for our state. And I'm hopeful that Tester is ousted this time because he's just been a vote for Chuck Schumer for the last 12, 18 years. It's time for Tester to go, and I think this new guy that's running against him has a really good chance to win.
Yeah, the Tim Sheehy race. Do you think we'll ever have a Democrat as competent as John Tester? And, we go back to Cecil Andrus, but besides the mayors of Boise, there really doesn't seem like a lot of Democratic leaders that have any statewide appeal.
Well, that's exactly right, Kevin. There are none. We haven't seen any that have come forward. And if they do, they're going to have to work their way through the ranks and build a base. They're going to have to build a base over a long period of time. It takes time to build a statewide following or a congressional district following or a constitutional officer following where people actually trust you. And sometimes you have to run more than once before you actually win. And that's what somebody's going to have to do. They're going to have to build up a base, a voter base, a group of people that they can rely on year after year for support, and they're going to have to build that, county by county, and that's a difficult and challenging thing to do, especially for a Democrat, because there's not too many Democrat strongholds out there. You talk about Moscow, Idaho. You talk about Boise, Idaho, Sun Valley, Idaho. You've got some Democrat strongholds, but most of the rest of the states is very red, and is going to, in all likelihood, is going to stay red for a while. I don't see anything that's going to change that, except for ranked choice voting. That could change things, and it's hard to predict how it would change things here. But to me, it might make things worse, and maybe jumble things so that Democrats. Maybe it's the in way to an insert to get Democrats into office more easily. I just can't predict that at this point.
Our great friend Mike Tracy joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. A couple more questions for Mike before we let him bolt. Let's talk a little bit about, do you believe there should be another debate between the president and the vice president?
I've thought about that, Kevin, and I've thought about that, and I really do believe if they could get one put together quickly maybe on Fox News, I wouldn't want Trump to go on any other network other than Fox News for another debate. And it's getting too close right now. I think it's 27 days, something like that right now. If they couldn't have something together in the next week, it doesn't make sense to me for them to move forward on it. It really is almost too late. If they had started working on something a couple of weeks ago for Fox News, that would have been one thing. I think it's going to be too late to do that. But the only place I would say I would do it would be on Fox News.
And Mike, finally, a general question for you. What do you make of all the businesses that continue to move to Idaho? What do they look for, sir?
Well, I really enjoy Dave Tester, the interviews you do with Dave, because he talks about this frequently. Low cost of wages, low electricity cost. We have ample water. Our infrastructure is built really well for businesses that want to move here. And that's why we've had so many move in the last 10, 15 years. And I think we're going to continue to see an influx. And not only people moving here, but that generates homegrown businesses at the same time. So while businesses are moving in, it prompts other businesses to crop up in support of that base, especially for construction. You can't outsource construction jobs. They've got to be created locally. And they're also looking at that infrastructure, what kind of construction there's available. And we have a good construction base in Idaho, and we have a lot of really talented and really are educated workforce in the building trades, and that really looks like something important to any kind of business who wants to move in here and build up a company quickly, is that building force and the trades that are in place already in Idaho.
Mike Tracy, once again, if people want to get a hold of you, what can they do, sir? We always appreciate your time, and I know you're busy, so thank you for joining us. What can they do to get hold of you, Mike?
It's simple. They can call or text at 208-863-3940, and I really appreciate the time, Kevin. It's always good to talk to you.
We appreciate you, Mike. Take care, sir.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Don't forget our friends at Window World Boise. We appreciate them getting ready for some windows at the Miller facility. We will take you through the entire process, but if you're looking for windows, now is the time to get them before the winter. You're going to go, Kevin, I can't afford it. Look, when you're talking about saving money and getting your home nicely insulated and secure and comfy, you can't afford not to take a look at our friends at Window World Boise, windowworldboise.com. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. What it's like to live in a hurricane area, what it's like to service the local community. We'll talk to our friend, man of the world, John Mounts. He has done hurricane coverage and continues to aid in the recovery efforts throughout the Southeast, and he's a man of the world, so we're going to take a look at that. And again, thank our blessings. We are urging you to pray for those people. Just take a moment, thank God for all that we have and for all those people that are struggling, whether it's a medical struggle, a financial struggle, an emotional struggle. Just know that God is with you and that we are with you. All you have to do is, just say a prayer, Lord, please help these people. And it's just unimaginable what is going on, and the nation prepares for it. And, on the other hand, I don't know if we really need Ginger and David and everybody there at the hurricane scene. Does that really service the community? We'll talk a little bit more about that, though. The weather watchers, are we making it a sport? And is it really involved in community service? I've seen a lot of great reports, I'm sure you have as well, where you have these reporters talking to people and they've lost everything. I would hope, I guess raising awareness would be the purpose of that. And we do need to be made aware. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk program. You can get our podcast available anywhere out to some talents, programmers of the world today. John, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
Our friend Sweet Williams says hello, along with Bo. You've got a budding fan base here, but I wish that we were talking about something on a social level, but when I'm hearing about these hurricanes and obviously Fort Myers, Tampa area, an area that you know very well. You coordinated news coverage there. You were involved in one of the largest news operations in the state, so you know all about these hurricanes. For those of us that really aren't familiar with what the Southeast is going to hit, what's that going to be like there? Have they ever seen anything like it?
They say this is probably going to be the largest one to hit the Tampa. Now they're thinking south of Tampa, more like Bradenton, but in almost 100 years. And they say you don't want to get caught up in the category. They were saying 5, now they're saying 4. But regardless of what the category is, that really only talks about wind speed. That doesn't indicate what kind of storm surge, because either way there's going to be massive storm surge. We're talking like 8, 10, 12 feet in places. So very big, what they're saying, unsurvivable, catastrophic storm surge.
Now, you've been in that area in Fort Myers. What is that like, let's say, for those of us that, you know, have never really seen an alligator across the street from you?
It's true. It's funny. They are everywhere. You know, Kevin, when I first moved down there and I saw a palm tree, I thought, wow, a coconut. And then after that, I was like, oh, there's coconuts everywhere. But yeah, it's a different world, especially South Florida. And I will tell you, I went down there a couple of years ago after Ian hit that area and just completely destroyed the Fort Myers Beach area, especially. And you're looking at like hotels that are maybe like 10, 12 stories high, and the first 2 floors are just pillars, like a skeleton, because the ocean washed away the interior portions of the building. Anything smaller than that was just gone entirely, like it never existed.
Well, what's it like to work, to be a part of the public service down there? Obviously, it must be a whole totally different culture, and I know you have a lot of friends there. What do you hear, and what is that like? I mean, we're watching the Weather Channel, but you lived it.
The thing is, you're always taught, you know, normally that you know, you got to run from this stuff, get away from it, go to a safe place. However, if your job is to report on it, you're told, look, you should be safe, but also you need to report on it. So they encourage, you know, your employer encourages you to stick around, but be safe about it, but stick around and cover it, because the people need the information, because sometimes it's their only lifeline. We saw this just a couple weeks ago in Asheville, North Carolina, where the radio became the only lifeline for those people who all the cell towers were down, so you can't get streaming stuff. The TV stations were out. Most of the radio stations were out. Our station there in Asheville was the only one on the air for days to provide information. It became like a point where people could call in and give information. And this will be the same thing, I think, with this storm as well.
Our great friend John Mounts joining us here. Why do people live there? I mean, is it a beautiful place to live?
It is. It's a beautiful place. The weather is incredible. You know, in January, it's, you know, like a high of like 74 degrees. Now don't ask me about August, because it's not pleasant then. But in the wintertime, it's a wonderful place to live. And low taxes, and, you know, no real, you know, no hills to have to climb. And it's a great place certainly to retire to. But there is this problem with the storms.
Have you ever seen any type of mass evacuation as we're seeing right now out of the state of Florida?
I have not witnessed anything like this when I was there. I was there for about 3 years, and we never saw anything. I never saw, the worst I saw was a tropical storm go through when I was down there at the time. But I've seen coverage of this, but I'd never witnessed it firsthand. I don't think they're doing the contraflow traffic yet, you know, where they've turned both directions of 75, say, to where you're both going north, regardless of north or southbound. But that's a possibility they might do later today, because they're still trying to get people out of there.
Yeah, I wondered if they were going to be doing that. So let's switch to Asheville, North Carolina. You're very familiar with what's going on there. Can you bring us up to speed of the devastation and this heroic guy that's been on the air for, you know, living at the radio station?
Yeah, Buncombe County is just absolutely, that's the county in which Asheville resides. It's an absolute, it's a loss. We're talking about like major interstates like I-40, I-26. They're talking these roads will not be in service again until late 2025. Whole portions of the road washed out. Whole parts of town. Swannanoa is virtually decimated. Black Mountain decimated. Now, the downtown areas of Asheville are actually, they're coming back to life. You know, they've got the power back on, they got the water back on, the downtown areas. But you get out from that any particular direction, and you're still looking at total devastation. No electricity, and with no power means no water, because you have to pump water up the mountain. So no running water water. A lot of people are using water from streams and rivers to flush the toilet because you can't get water, and you won't be for months. And they're saying that this is going to be a problem for a long time. They don't even have a accurate death count. They're thinking probably just in Buncombe County, probably about like 80 people have been confirmed dead, over 300 still missing. And our radio station there became kind of the clearinghouse for information on this because people were calling in. They created this brigade. This brigade of people who was going from house to house checking and then calling in, hey, so-and-so, we found them, so-and-so, we can't find them, but they left a note, that kind of thing. People are going to using mules to move things around because even 4x4s can't climb these roads. There's nothing. These roads have become rivers. There's no way to get through to a lot of these places.
Now, we'll get you out on this one. You're a pretty technologically savvy guy. What does that say? Because we've been hearing about, getting rid of AM radio and the power of radio, and it's so funny, and not really, but people, talk about television. Well, if you don't have power or anything, you can't watch television. And yet radio is the lifeline to that community. We had callers calling in and saying, this is the reason why multiple callers saying this is the reason why we need AM radio, because we were there for them, bringing that information, and every day, twice a day, and now they've gone to once a day, but a press conference, an hour long, where they have all the city officials giving updates on the situation with utilities, giving updates on roads, where you can get water, where you can get toiletries, what restaurants are open and closed, that kind of stuff. Every single day, we broadcast that multiple times a day, and we became kind of a place where people could call in and give information, share information, also share encouragement. We'd have people call in with a banjo and sing a song or something like that. It's been incredible the amount of response that we've had from all the people throughout Western North Carolina to what we're doing and what's going to continue to be done. And that's the thing, Kevin. After this hurricane hits Florida, the eyes of the nation will probably not be paying attention to Western North Carolina. But this is going to be a story for them for the next decade, but certainly the next couple of years. Yeah, finally, what do you think is going to happen in Florida there? You're, again, familiar with everything, and obviously people still recovering from Helene.
I was really impressed with what Rick DeSantis did after Ian and how quickly he got the Matt Lachey Bridge back in place, how quickly he was able to get utilities, he was able to redirect things. And, all politics aside, the whole thing with Kamala Harris saying how he wouldn't return her phone call, he is going to, I think, help that state come back fast. This is going to be bad. It's going to be a lot of wind, a lot of rain, a lot of flooding, and there's going to be some damage wherever this thing comes ashore. But I think he will turn it around fast, and you will see that state emerge very quickly from this because they know how to do it. They've been through it, and I think they will come through this one again.
John Mounts, I know you're very busy, so thank you for your time today, sir.
Sure, anytime, Kevin.
Appreciate that. Always great to hear from our friend John Mounts, what it's like to survive a tropical storm, what it's like to survive a hurricane. And, as we say, it used to be everybody's dream is to, be that voice for, during the disaster. But can you imagine just the physical and psychological challenge of being, working and on the air and all sorts of things again and again and again that these folks are going through and providing that public service. And, we live in such a disposable economy, and thankfully people aren't disposable, whether it's in Idaho or Florida or North Carolina. Speaking of disposable, the folks at Treasure Valley Subaru, Rob and the gang, they're not disposable, and you're not either. You're very special to them, especially if you're looking for a new car under $20,000. Now, people say, well, if you find one, it's probably below average, gutless, and no fun to drive. So if your budget is under $20,000, where's your best bet? You're looking for a good quality used car from a dealership that you can trust. That dealership, my friend, is Treasure Valley Subaru, the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore. Because when you buy from Rob and the crew, they will take care of you, and they'll always have a good selection of pre-owned cars under $20,000. Here's a couple of examples for $19,995 or less. How about a 2014 Honda CR-V, a 2017 Toyota Highlander? Hurry if you want that one. Boy, that sounds like a good one. They even have cars for under $12,000 like these two, a 2021 Kia Sportage and an all-wheel drive 2016 Ford Eagle. Many of the best of the under 20,000 cars sell before they even get listed on the website. So Kevin Miller recommends that you go out there, walk the lot at the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore at Treasure Valley Subaru and see what's available today. Treasure Valley Subaru and the Idaho Center Pre-Owned Superstore together on one giant lot at the Idaho Center Auto Mall and at TreasureValleySubaru.com. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Again, we appreciate everybody who, is trying to make the most of things, and certainly our friends at Treasure Valley Subaru. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's continue on. We go to Jason, who is now, yesterday he was in Georgia, today he's in Florida. He is working for of the power company. He is in Idaho. I don't know if he wants to mention his company, but Jason, good morning, and what the heck are you doing in Florida, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we were in Augusta, Georgia yesterday and got released from Georgia Power, and they needed us in Florida. So the governor is they're aiming for 45,000 linemen to be on standby here in Florida. So we took a right-hand turn and headed south, and now we are going to be staged up near Fort Pierce, Florida, which is just north of Orlando. It's going to be kind of on the southern third of the hurricane projected path on the East Coast. So right now it feels, the humidity and the climate here is just 180 difference, 80 degrees, and it feels like a warm, steamed towel around your body the entire time out here. But it's the calm before the storm. People here seem to be in decent spirits. They know it's coming, but you could tell they are preparing. We passed, I want to say, probably upwards of 75 National Guardsmen heading south with us on I-95. And, we all know what we're here to do, so it's just kind of like, steady yourself, get here, prepare, and then we're going to go to work. But I have another friend over in the Villages, which is pretty much right in the direct path of this hurricane, and I have another buddy down here who's more on the East Coast, West Coast, north of Tampa. So we're all spread out here. We're sitting, waiting. And like that gentleman said just before me, DeSantis is doing a great job. I heard earlier on the local radio here that this is probably the most the National Guardsmen ever sent out for a hurricane, pre-hurricane. So it sounds like he's doing everything humanly possible. There is a stream heading north on 95 with traffic. And there, 5 o'clock, we went through Jacksonville. I didn't even hit my brakes. So everybody's heading north. They are heeding to the advice of the evacuation, or at least getting out of the way. So hopefully the human loss won't be big, but they're expecting 110, 100-mile-an-hour winds right in the middle of the state inland, and about 75 miles an hour winds on the east coast of Florida as of right now. But it's just a calm before the storm. It's kind of scary.
Jason, what's it like for you, and why are you doing this?
We understand as linemen how important power is there. Everything's ran off power. Like that gentleman said, you can't flush your toilet. You can't get water. You can't get the essentials, refrigerators, without that power. And it's just one of those things that, I do my job, but I have a servant's heart in the Lord, and when you see people in need and you have the ability to do something to help them, I'm just called to run towards whatever that is. Others do it for other reasons, but for the most part, it's just when you can help, do what you can. Do what you're good at and let others do what they're good at. And I think that's the best way to get through these disasters like this. We were talking about the mules up in North Carolina. North Carolina, those Appalachians over there, those guys have been doing that for hundreds of years, and it's their culture, it's their tradition, like our Western tradition. We still pack in for elk hunting and stuff. They don't do it for elk hunting. They did it for logging, and they did it for mining and other things. But that's what they can do. So that's what they're going to do. And it's just a servant's heart. And that's how you have to go about something like this, for sure.
Well, Jason, anything else you'd like to say to us, sir? Please be very careful.
No, just keep us in your prayers. Tonight is going to be the big, it's supposed to hit the East Coast at 2 o'clock tonight at 2 a.m., which isn't great because it's obviously in the middle of the night. So we'll see how it goes. But if I can with cell service or whatever, I'll definitely try and check in tomorrow. And I appreciate you covering this. If you guys can donate blood, plasma, Good Samaritans, please do. It is going to good use, especially in North Carolina. I don't know how Florida's going to be yet. It's not bad yet here, but those in North Carolina definitely need it. I've been hearing reports of they just can't get there. Like that gentleman said, there's no road. There's mountains like Idaho City over there. And then you just come up and there's like a 75-yard swath of nothing. And I don't doubt the side-by-sides and four-wheelers can't get through there. And if they're packing in on mules and helicopters, that's about the only way. So they're going to need sources and refunds. Well,
Jason, yes, go ahead, Jason.
Yes. Yeah, they're definitely going to need resources as far as like food and water. You know, the meal trains are going to go in there, but they got to have something to go in there with. But it's not going to be a fast process, and that's unfortunate. But I can't speak too much to North Carolina. This is all secondhand from my buddies one friend of mine who is there as a lineman, and there's nothing he can do, and he's just like, I can't get there. So be praying for them, and they're the ones hurting the most right now, I think.
Jason, God bless you, and please be very safe. Thank you for the call, and thank you for keeping us informed.
Yes, sir. I'll try and check in when I can. Appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Live from the scene, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. The Real America. And by the way, thank you, Tea Party Bob, saying I sound tired this morning. Thank you, Tea Party Bob. Not everybody is as spry and as jumpy as you. Anyway, and if I do sound tired, I'm sorry about that. We'll work hard to make the next 2 hours a little bit more compelling and exciting. But you contrast that with, we're hearing from Jason, a guy from Idaho who was in Augusta, Georgia, and I have friends there. Area devastated. Now they're these linemen, and of course in CUNA we have the great world-famous lineman school, where these guys are going out and hopefully the ground is secure and everybody's safe, but they're going in. Literally going in. We'll talk more about that contrast next, but thank you, Jason. Thank you for all of you who work to make our lives better and safer. God bless. Kevin Miller, Beacon Plumbing, brings you Fox News. Stay with us. Has built in Florida, where they're saying to the looters, you may be shot if, in fact, you try to loot. So the looters could end up the victims of shooters in FLA. And let's hope and pray that those folks get through that. I know the area is bracing for it. Do appreciate Jason for joining us with his live reports, a lineman. And by the way, if you're not familiar with our area, there's a great lineman school in CUNA, Idaho. They have the pulls, and, you talk about a job, and if I were 30 years younger or 20 years younger, it's not an easy job, but you go there, and I think it's, what is it? Is it less than a year, Sweet William? What's that? What do you know? You're looking at the South Korean embassy immediately below us. Okay, and you promised to stay out of the Turkish embassy? Okay, thank you, Sweet. And the Kuwait embassy? Thank you, Sweet William. So, you think about these linemen that get up there and again, you have to be fit. You can't have, I believe you can't have a protruding waistline. And if you do, it's not going to work well for you. But imagine our friend who just told us this information, Jason, who lives in Idaho. So remember, I believe they took their vehicles. They drove to Georgia, and they were living in a man camp. And if you've ever lived in a man camp, it is not a good place to live. So there he is, and he's sitting there and working all day. There's no television. There's no anything. You just work. And that's it. And now he's going into the heart of the storm and all those people. So, we don't give people enough recognition. And I understand that everybody has a profession and everybody has challenges. And really, we all are in the service industry. These people live to serve. And here we have Jason, who in fact is there getting ready to help folks. And 75,000 National Guard people that are mobilized. And you have Florida that apparently is doing a very good job, and the other states like North Carolina struggling. But can you imagine, we take a look at how it impacts us. So here we have I-84, the lifeline of our community. Let's say from here to Mountain Home, all of a sudden, that didn't exist. Now, I know there is a back way to Mountain Home, and then it's not going to come back for 2 or 3 years. We talk about traffic now. Imagine how you would get through that. Imagine how you would get through that. I'm just amazed at what's going to happen. And I don't know really, we always say, well, what is the government going to do? What can the government do when your road is just washed out? And that's what people are dealing with. And earlier today, do we have that, Sweet William? What's that? Jonathan Savage is not going to join us? Wow. Thankfully, we have you and Bo. Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm sure everybody at home is reassured. Okay, so we'll open this up at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And this is where we're talking about the real Americans, the people that are caregivers, service workers, linemen, people that are, worrying about the elderly. And I forgot to ask this to John Mounts, but, what do you do when you evacuate? Do you take the people out of the hospitals? I mean, is there any type of police presence left? Are you, what about the Coast Guard? Is everybody just pieced out and you're truly, I'm sure you've been watching the videos of the storm surge and people are in their homes and boom, here comes the water. This is a calamity that, we wish we could avoid. And then you have people that are saying, well, you know what we need to do? We need to stop about climate change and climate and all this. Do we know if this is responsible for climate change? The climate change argument is very similar to, tragically, when there's a gun accident or a gun shooting. What do? We always say that this could have been avoided, that we could have done this. And, if we had gotten rid of the guns, because the guns are the problem. Never mind the people that are mentally disturbed. Never mind the people that, may have an issue. Never mind the people that have a criminal heart and just want to hurt people. Never mind that at all. We're not going to give them the responsibility. We're going to say it's time for you to take away your guns. It's time to take away gas-powered vehicles. It's time to really crack down on things. And to a degree, let's say they're right. The problem with them being right is that we have major polluters like China, like India, like North Korea, like Iran, like all these other places that really are not going to do anything. They're going to continue to pollute. And you can take a look at the United States of America. We have cut down our emissions tremendously. but it's still not making a dent in it because you have people, friends or foes, that don't believe in climate change, and they don't care because they want to have world domination. When you're talking about a theocracy, when you're talking about anything else, you're going to sit back at 580-5436-580-KIDO. When you're doing that, you don't really care about the air. You don't really care about anything else. What's that? Jonathan Savage just called, and we gave him the Heisman? Okay, see, this is what we're saying. Thank you, Bo. This is really the unvarnished story here. This is not a big production. So we appreciate Mr. Savage calling in late. Back to him, and you're going, who's Jonathan Savage? He's a guy that we have on from London. Really, he's a closet pro wrestling fan. So if you're not into pro wrestling, no, he's a great reporter from Fox News, but he does like to talk about pro wrestling. We don't really encourage that. We do, but we don't, but we do, but we don't. Anyway, we're going to get him on about the latest negotiations concerning Israel. And, we take a look at where we are right now, and we're somewhat removed, but are we? We're only, I don't even want to call it a Greg Ferrer a giant from our own challenges. And I will tell you that I take a look at what's going on in the world today, and I'm thinking it's time to probably, start prepping. And maybe not for the government takeover, but if you live in a state like North Carolina or Georgia or Florida, you're not getting the love that you get if you're, another country. See, that's the point. And, we're the oasis for conservatism. We say that we're conservative. We love being conservative. But when you take a look at, how in the world, just from a simple common sense point of view, you can even be a liberal. You can even be a liberal. But from a common sense point of view, we can give billions of dollars to all these countries, and we can wave a magic wand for that to happen. And magically, the money appears now for you that have small businesses, for you that have everything else. I understand that. I understand that it's you can't magically do that, and it's a source of frustration, isn't it? At 580-5436-580-KIDO. I mean, when we're talking about major reconstruction, we're talking about the money we spend in Afghanistan or these other places to save our brothers and sisters, our fellow taxpayers, if you will. We should not spare the expense. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Still not too late to get those windows installed. We'll be getting ours installed in a couple weeks and looking forward to saving money now more than ever when it comes to the cost of heating and cost of global warming. But we're taking a look at a couple of things. By the way, if you're just tuning in, asking you to pray for those folks in the storm area and those that are still recovering. Can we only imagine what would happen if it were us? Secondly, you ever have a conversation and sometimes it goes bad? Now, the following I'm going to share with you is for entertainment purposes only, and I've never really understood the appeal of Pierce Brosnan. But Pierce, Pierce Brosnan. Thank you. Yes, I know that was 007, Remington Steele for you people over 60. No, Pierce Morgan. Very big difference. Pierce Morgan. So he has this show, and really he just is an instigator, whether you're left or right, and he's made a ton of money doing this, but he just instigates with people. So this is something that we all can relate to. It really has nothing to do with politics, and the older we get, the more we can see this happen, where we have a debate and we have it going to a certain level, and then it continues to denigrate. And what happens when it gets to a point? And you think the people that in England, they would call them presenters, or people that have a responsibility. We always hear the media and the journalists lecturing us on how to behave properly from their ivory towered perch with their devil's advocate perspective. Of course, they don't put it on the line. They just judge us. So what happens when a conversation goes bad through three distinguished people? Now, again, this has nothing to do with the topic. The point of the matter is sometimes people just don't know when to stop. So this is Alan Dershowitz, Piers Morgan, and a guy named Habab, I believe, and they're talking about the legal system. And this guy, and again, I think you'll find their accents entertaining and alluring to a point, where they just should have had the decency to cut it off. Do we have it, Sweet William? Let's take a look. But again, they're debating Jeffrey Epstein. They're debating who knew what and when. And no guy ever likes to have the implication that you're not, like, if you're not of, let's say, you're not a homosexual and you are called a homosexual and you're a heterosexual, those are fighting words from the playground everywhere else. Even the former president had a little fun with it.
Thank you very much. You don't look good.
Did you hear that? Gays for Trump, quote, you don't look gay. I'm sure someone will call him the phobe for that one.
Where's gays for Trump? You don't look good. We did great.
There we have it. You don't look gay. So it's a thing amongst guys. You don't sit there. Now, some people, they're, what do we call it, a little bit more secure in themselves, and it's a joke. But when you're on a public platform and you start making very creative but very lowbrow allegations, it could happen anywhere. Now, again, it doesn't really happen in Idaho because we're civilized, but I could see it happening somewhere else where, you know, sometimes in the old days you're trying to press a girl or you're trying to press somebody and it just gets out of hand. Do we have it, Sweet? Let's take a listen to this conversation on KIDO Talk Radio.
We're talking about 30,000 people detained in prisons on the one hand and 100 people who are hostages. And yet we have managed somehow to spend way more time proportionally.
You said 3,000 a minute ago. Which one is it? 3,000?
Sorry, 3,000. It's
not 30,000.
Not 30.
Okay,
3,000.
Get your numbers right if you're going to make that claim.
Okay, I misspoke.
Exaggerated 10 times.
Not a problem. He spoke about Iran. Let me ask you a question about it.
Let me ask the question.
Sure, go ahead.
And you guys try and debate it.
Go ahead.
At the moment, Alan Dershowitz is being very civilized in the way he's debating.
I'm sure you're going to say that.
You're just making ad hominem attacks and shouting all the time.
He's your friend.
No one can understand it when he's shouting.
Have you met him before?
I know Alan well.
Oh, you know him well.
I respect him very much.
Oh, yes, you do.
He's one of America's top lawyers.
Now, again, you're thinking, well, how much worse can it get? Well, this guy, apparently he doesn't like Alan Dershowitz. He's losing the argument. And oh, yes, he goes there.
And you're an unbiased person here on Central.
An unbiased person about Alan Dershowitz? Why?
Does he have leverage on you, Piers Morgan?
There's no leverage on me, no.
You've got a picture with Maxwell.
Yes, with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Did you go to the island?
No, I've never been to the island. I've never met Jeffrey Epstein.
Be honest.
I never spent more than 5 minutes with Ghislaine Maxwell. I've answered you. So what part of that wants to...
Do you condemn him being on the island? He's your good friend?
You can ask him about Jeffrey Epstein.
You had a massage.
You represented him.
He said he didn't take his shorts off.
So now he's saying, did you go to the Epstein Island? Did you have a massage? Did you take your shorts off? A far different topic than what we were talking about between Iran and Israel just moments ago. And if nothing else, this conversation between Piers Morgan, Alan Dershowitz, and this other guy, maybe it would give us pause just to make sure that we keep ourselves in line as opposed to getting out of hand. You know what I mean. Sometimes... What is that saying? You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Oh, I know the young kids are laughing at me, but that was a phrase back 75 years ago.
None of this has got anything to do with Israel.
He said he didn't take his shorts off when he was getting a massage.
Please, Mohammed.
Why is this uncomfortable?
It's nothing to do with the debate.
He didn't take his shorts off, but he's got his pants down now, hasn't he?
Can you stop it?
Why?
What's the point?
Why? He defended one of the most obnoxious people in the last 100 years. Why should I stop it?
Actually, what is going on right now in the Middle East is incredibly important.
Yes, and you have this man who's...
You are trivializing the... Well, if you didn't want to do a debate, don't agree to do it.
Who said I'm not doing a debate? I'm saying this person who's defending Israel...
Stupid ad hominem attacks is pathetic.
Oh, okay. All right, he's your good friend. You want to defend him so much.
What are you talking about?
You're defending him.
Huh?
You're defending him. You're defending a monster. A pervert. An old pervert.
He's not a pervert.
No one likes to be called a monster, a pervert, or even worse, an old pervert. Probably not a young pervert, but for some reason, old perverts, it's just not very appealing.
Or a monster.
Why is he not? He knew Epstein, and for us, there's good info.
Why are you doing this, Mohammed?
Why not?
Because it's pointless. You may get a few clicks
ask
on
your question.
You might get a few clicks on it. So what?
It's not.
Ask your questions.
Let me be very clear. It's not pointless. He just called me a pervert. He will be sued now for defamation, and we will be able to resolve this in a court of law. I guarantee you that he will be sued.
In my understanding, you are a pervert.
The woman who falsely accused me has now withdrawn her
I've got my own defamation cases. I know the law very well here.
That she may have confused me with somebody.
You know, and you think we have problems in Idaho. And this is on international television. International television. Crazy. Just a little word to the wise when you're dealing with difficult people, when you're dealing with everyone else, you might want to say, let me have a little patience. Let me have a little perspective, discernment, empathy. You know what I mean. Because a little of that goes a long way. It's just a little lifestyle thing. Now, yesterday we were talking about, I was going to say Alana Harris, but Kamala Harris. She gets a new name and a new view every day. She wanted to be in the scene. So what did she do? She started accusing the Florida governor in the midst of recovering from one disaster, getting ready for the state's greatest disaster, of politicizing the moment because he didn't take her call. Well, as Governor DeSantis said, she didn't call or he didn't get through, and she's not in the chain of command. She's the backup. She's not the boss. And Joe Biden, believe it or not, good old Joe, came to the defense of the Florida governor when they're talking about coordinating the federal and the state response to the devastating hurricane damage.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday. And I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing. And they're doing an incredible job.
Yeah, there we have it. So, to the Vice President. More coming up next. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. We really love Beacon Plumbing. They do such a great job of taking care of us in the troubling, challenging areas. So thank you to our friends at Beacon Plumbing. And, you know, plumbing is very important. I was watching the disaster relief, and people are having to shovel stuff out of their homes and all the debris because the sewage plant broke down the river. Now, no one likes it when the septic tank overflows. Nobody likes it when these things happen. It takes a very special individual, like our friend Ray Kuhn and Patriot Ray and Beacon Plumbing, Glenn in Nampa, to handle life's most challenging, stinky problems and dangerous problems as well. You know, that waste, you don't know where that came from or what's in there. So thank you, Beacon Plumbing. So you need to stop freaking. And in the world today, we all need to stop freaking. Call Beacon Plumbing, beaconplumbing.net. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Let's get you to work safely and on time. The power of radio. And like I said, I was talking to somebody earlier in the building, and this is where the world leaders actually stay when they're in town. I'm looking out my window, and we've got the flags of all the nations. So really, this is about representing you. So, again, here we are rolling. We've got the country on disaster watch, presidential watch. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's get a little, how should we put this, political, if you will. We have Secretary Mayorkas on CNN talking about that if you criticize the administration, even if it's rightful criticism, you're in a bad spot, if you will, and, you know, especially the Trump administration, because really the Trump administration would make things worse. Really? Does anybody really buy that? Now, you may not like Donald Trump. You may not like what he's doing to the Republican Party, but making it worse, last night I was watching Mitt Romney. And really what Mitt Romney and the Cheneys and the Bushes, what they're waiting for is they want Donald Trump to fail. And it's like that sometimes at work or your favorite sports team. Sometimes there's just not buy-in. You know, the difference between people that succeed and fail is usually it's somebody behind the scenes. It's that boss that really makes a difference. I can tell you for sure that one of the reasons why I'm not a teacher is it was just I never really had a great mentor, and it's not a knock on it. It just wasn't meant to be. Or, you know, somebody who takes you under their wing. And you don't have to read The Tipping Point or his new bestseller, Malcolm Gladwell's The Revenge of the Tipping Point, to understand that it's those outliers that make things happen. And, you know, when we take a look at what makes a difference in the people that achieve. And really that's where the difference is. So you have the Cheneys and the Romneys. They're kind of like that boss that's rooting against you or the other department. Let's say, you know, you have a bowling alley. Let's say it's Meridian Lanes, and this is not about Meridian Lanes. They're a great, wonderful place. I love Meridian Lanes. Great local ownership, and you have a battle between the bar and the bowling alley. And the bowling alley, you know, is doing well, but the bar is encouraging people to go to the bowling alley and vice versa because they're competing. And that's really what we're seeing within the Republican Party. And you could say that in Idaho in a way because you take a look at the folks that have moved in from California, the folks that have taken over the Republican Party. And I don't think it's the same vitriol that you have with the Romneys and the Cheneys. But Mitt Romney, who still remains one of the most popular figures in Idaho politics, saying that he hopes to have a say in the rebuilding of the Republican Party. They want Romney to endorse Harris. And think about this, if you're Mitt Romney, you've pretty much owned the state of Utah, you and your family for your entire life. And then call it Donald Trump, call it whatever, it's all taken away from you. Mitt Romney's going to be 80, but he still looks good. He could continue to run, but he decided not to in late 70s, whatever. And now he's talking about having a hand in rebuilding the Republican Party. I don't think there's a place in the Republican Party, with all due respect for the Bushes and the Cheneys. Well, President Bush, to his credit, he's staying out of it, and I get that. But once you endorse a liberal, how can you come back, Liz Cheney? So what we're saying here, think about this as you're having your hot cocoa or milk or protein shake or what have you. You'd rather endorse the most liberal senator ever who's talking about carrying a Glock. By the way, Glocks, I have a story for you. They're illegal in California. So we already have Harris in trouble with the law if she really carries a Glock. So you would rather elect someone who is philosophically so different than someone that you don't agree with. Now, I get not voting for people. There are people in Idaho that they're my senators, they're my this. I won't vote for them because they're not on my team, so why should I be on theirs? But to cross that line, and then now everybody's colluding. You know, we saw this in the Idaho Republican Party where we had the battle for the leadership. We had a lot of people spending a lot of money to get rid of Dorothy Moon. They didn't get rid of Dorothy Moon. And I'm sure Dorothy Moon was under a lot of stress. She's the chairman of the GOP. And there were a lot of people that had a lot of anxiety. I had somebody come up to me and, you know, they bought a digital billboard and just really a lot of anxiety. I'm like, dude, and they're not paying you for this? And they care. Now, like I said, the people that ran that campaign, they're good people. But on the other hand, that was a lot of money that was not spent in the right way. But they didn't advocate voting for a Democrat. Say what you want about, well, I guess you do have some prominent Republicans that are always voting, and they're going to vote for that because they say the party's become too mean. However, once you cross that line, that's very difficult to come back. So what I'm revealing to you is that there is a plan that if Trump loses, you're going to have the Romneys and the Cheneys and everybody trying to get back in because they believe the fixins are good. I don't believe that the party will ever go back to that.
I want to ask you about the response to Hurricane Helene. Because J.D. Vance just came out with an opinion piece accusing the Biden administration of mismanaging the response, calling the response so far incompetent, and calling you out specifically. Here it is in part. He writes this: shortly after Helene made landfall in the United States on September 26th, Joe Biden was at his house in Rehoboth Beach. Vice President Kamala Harris was flying between ritzy California fundraisers, hobnobbing with celebrities. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was in Los Angeles presiding over an award ceremony. How do you respond to those accusations from J.D. Vance?
Kate, we don't listen to or pay attention to such unproductive and, quite frankly, counterproductive.
Thought it was a good point. Thought it was a really good point. Where were you? Why weren't you monitoring the situation? Were the governors at the beach? Were the governors doing things? No, they were there. It's actions, not words, that we're judged by. Back to you, incompetent Mayorkas.
Productive words. We're focused on mission. The state and local leaders in the impacted states have praised the federal response. We work in partnership with our state and local officials. We have delivered more than $280 million in assistance directly to individuals impacted by Helene. And by the way, in Los Angeles, I was recognizing outstanding work of the personnel of the Department of Homeland Security, and surely others should support and recognize that tremendous work as well.
Sure. But tell that to the people without power. Tell that to the people that are facing this horrific hurricane. And by the way, who cannot be moved by the people that are getting up and moving and doing all sorts of craziness because they have to, because they have no choice, because they know that if they stay, they're going to die. Well, where is Mayorkas? Maybe we should get the illegals to build a storm wall. Maybe we should look at, some type of barrier that's 20 feet big. Would that be enough? Most likely not. But, instead of, being involved in petty politics, let's have some empathy for our fellow Americans. That's not asking too much, I believe. Do you believe that it is? And here you have Mayorkas. We're not going to do this. Madam Vice President, what do you think? Well, I think I'm going to have a beer. What do you mean you're going to have a beer? Wow. So here we have the largest disaster that is going to hit the state of Florida. And remember, could be Idaho, could be Illinois, could be like any other place. And we have her drinking a beer. Now, before we get to her drinking a beer, how can you not relate to this guy, J.D. Vance? He's basically saying what all of us would like, Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative. If he were running for the mayor of Boise, this is the speech that he would give.
Gas prices are up 45% under Kamala Harris. That's just in Michigan. In Michigan, home prices are up 41%. I know we have a lot of parents and a lot of grandparents in this room. Speaking as the father of 3 young children, I would like my kids, when they grow up and move out, and hopefully that eventually happens. But when they grow up and they move out, I want them to be able to afford home ownership in the United States of America. That's a core part of the American dream, right? And we know a lot of our young people right now cannot afford to own a home in the United States of America. Kamala Harris has failed to deliver the basic necessities of an economic prosperity for our citizens. And I think that we ought to say something very simple to Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump's very fond of saying it. You're fired. Go back to San Francisco where you belong. We're getting a president the American people deserve.
Wow, there's another thing. Where does she go if she's done? Where does she really go? Back to California with her Glock? Anyway, coming up, a look at how out of touch at least Kamala is. You got to admit, Joe appears to be on the case. Is he? Hey, don't let me hog up the spotlight, the limelight. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Don't forget our friends at Window World Boise, windowworldboise.com. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, question.
Hey,
when you're talking about your car, do you just say, hey, I drive a Dodge or a Ford or a Chevy? When somebody's like, what's your favorite car, Kevin? Explain it to me. Tell me what's your favorite car.
Oof.
I know it's hard, but just pick one and describe it to me.
No, I'll say my paid-off Toyota Camry or my paid-off Subaru Forester.
Okay, so you described your car very well. This is how you know Kamala doesn't know anything about guns. When they asked her what kind of gun it was, it's a Glock. Okay? What kind of Glock? There's Glock 19s, there's Glock 22s, there's Glock 17s. I mean, there's all kinds of Glocks. There's even different generations of those same guns. So I know Kamala's team listens to your show, Kevin, because we do such a good job. They got to listen. So my question is, what kind of Glock? You obviously aren't a Glock person or a gun person, because if like Kevin asked me, what's my everyday carry?
What's your everyday carry, Brian?
It's a Palmetto State PSA Dagger Compact. It's a Glock 19 clone, and I've done all kinds of enhancements to it, like a different trigger shoe. I take a plastic thing out of the striker and put a stainless steel thing in there to make it better. I could go on for hours. That's a gun person. They know their gun intimately like they know their car. I drive a Dodge Durango, 2008, all-wheel drive, a V8, okay? That's one of my cars. I got lots of guns, too. But I can describe them all that way. And that's what you were just talking about Mitt Romney and the politicians that don't like Trump. That's what they don't get. They don't know how to be real. And at least me, Kevin, and my family that I talk to a lot, and my friends, we're tired of fake politicians. We want real people. Sins, problems, and all. We're tired of, and I know I'm the elite clicker, but there's a difference between being elite and being elites that look down on people and aren't real and give it to you like you would your neighbor. Here's an offer to everybody running, J.D. Vance, Trump, Kamala, and her VP pick. Come to Idaho and spend a day with the elite clicker. Don't worry, Secret Service, there's nothing you got to worry about me. Got a DOD clearance, had a health and well clearance, worked in a prison. I'll guard them, probably better than you would. But come and spend a day with a real American and just have a down-to-earth conversation. There doesn't have to be any cameras, and find out what people really think. Kevin, I'm not going to lie. The more I listen to J.D. Vance, the more I like him. Because he's more kind of down-to-earth kind of guy. And Trump, despite all of his flaws, he has that. And that's what Mitt Romney doesn't like. That's what Harris doesn't like. And I don't know if it's because I'm 52, but I am so sick of fake politicians. Because, you know this, Kevin, you're older like me, because when you get to a certain age, you can read things about people, and they might say one thing, but they're doing another. And I find it rather interesting that Kamala Harris thinks it's okay for her to have a Glock, but it's not okay for me. That says a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And then I think to myself, what type of leadership is that?
Yeah, what kind of hypocrisy is that? Here you are running around. I've got a question for Kalma. Is it a high-capacity magazine? How many rounds does it hold? Can it accept it? Could you put a fun switch, as the brothers in the hood would call it, on the back of it and convert it to full auto? Why aren't you willing to open up and show who you really are? Kevin, do you think I'm real with you? Do you think I open up and I show you who the real Brian is? Flaws and all?
You do.
I try to. I try. That's what the American people are hungry for. I tell you, hey, I'm a sinner. I have flaws. I tell you what I'm good at, what I'm elite at. And I tell you what, I got a blessing from a couple of the elders in my church, Kevin. You know what the blessing told me? And this is kind of personal, but I like being personal. In the blessing, the elder told me, and he's talking for God, it's not a curse, it's your cross. Bear it well. And I went, oh, you know what that means to me, Kevin? That's kind of like Jesus saying, hey, tough it up there, Buttercup. It ain't as bad as mine. Yeah, it might be a bad cross, but it ain't even close to mine. So I'll help you out, but you need to toughen up. I wish.
What do you make of her trying to be a beer drinker and a gun owner all of a sudden?
She's trying to appeal to the independents. She's trying to get that middle vote. And Kamala, it might work on some people, I ain't going to lie. But I see right through you like a cheap sheet that's been washed too much. We know what you've done. It's called, she pushed something in California called Proposition H. You ain't hiding anything from us. And yes, because you were Attorney General and you're in law enforcement, you were allowed to have a gun. In fact, Kevin, she could have a Glock 18, which is a machine gun. But nobody else in California can, according to her. I've got 4 or 5 PSA daggers I've tricked out. They come in all sizes and shapes. I have high-capacity magazines. I have standard-capacity magazines. Glad I live in one of the states where it's still American. We're still free to defend our families from criminals, tyrants, and anybody that wishes to do us harm. Come to Idaho. Learn what real America is. I'm not rich. I'm very rich with my family. I'm very blessed by God, but I'm not rich. Come talk to somebody that'll tell you like it is. That's my request. Any questions, Kevin?
No, we appreciate you, Brian. Thank you.
Love you, Kevin.
I love you. Thank you. Let's get you to work safely. I'm KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin, from the G&G Insulation Studio. Westbound traffic in Canyon County still running slow. We have an accident right at milepost 37, so you're going to be delayed through there. Try to move to the left-hand lanes to get through there a little bit quicker. Well, Pours and S'mores is going on. Welcome fall at the Nampa Civic Center Pours and S'mores event going on tonight, 5 till 9. Live music, local vendors, s'mores, and fine liqueur and fire pits to keep you warm. Free to attend. Visit NampaCivicCenter.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
Thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate your in-depth reports. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Whenever you have a plumbing issue, a plumbing problem, they really say this, and it's true. You might see the billboards, you may see the commercials, but hear it from me, Kevin Miller. Stop freaking, call Beacon. Beacon Plumbing is our choice plumber because let's face it, you don't want somebody to come in and, well, it looks like it's a leak here. Let me bang on the pipe. And then the vice president goes, well, I'm going to do this. You don't want that. What you want is someone who's going to fix it and fix it good. So call our friends at Beacon Plumbing today. BeaconPlumbing.net. They bring you Fox News on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning. Well, you know them. Don't forget the free KIDO Talk Radio app. And if you're looking to avoid speeding tickets, you might have the magical color car in Idaho. If you do, make sure you check it out on our website. What colored car gets the most speeding tickets in Idaho? Let's get to our great friend, Greg Pruitt. It's been years, it seems, since we've had him on. I can remember when Greg lived in Middleton. Then he left us for Wisconsin. Then he came back, and then he moved to East Idaho. And, well, we miss him, but we don't miss his commitment. He's always committed to the gem state. We talked a little bit about him earlier, founder of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, founder of the Idaho Dispatch. Then he sold it. Now he's bought it back. Always great to have Greg Pruitt on, and we really, really love people like Greg Pruitt. There aren't many like them because he's a true believer. While most of us are worried about the price of coffee and everything else, Greg is going deep into some big issues. So welcome back to the sickness, Greg. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, Kevin, man, I hope you get feeling better, brother.
I appreciate that. And you certainly have a big heart. So you get out of the publishing business. Now you're back in. You're kind of like Michael Corleone. They keep bringing you back. What brought you back? And obviously you've got a big story. You're covering the big issues. You have an objective publication. Tell us the details, sir. Please.
Yeah, I mean, God kind of works in mysterious ways sometimes, and I've got a little bit overloaded for a while, doing all the many hats that I wear, as you know, and have talked about, and kind of just got to a place where I had cleared some things off my plate, and just to where I can just focus on, I guess, the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, and the other owners were in a place where they were ready to kind of let it back go. And quite honestly, Kevin, I can't stand the Idaho mainstream media. It's so terrible. It drives me crazy. And so that, and I missed it. There's a lot of fun in doing radio every day. I'm sure you know that. There's just so many news stories and awesome stories, and you want to get the information out there to the people, and that's what you do. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Idaho Dispatch.
Well, you do it very well. So when you take a look and tell us why you started the Idaho Dispatch.
I mean, that was really it. I think, Kevin, after Trump got elected in 2016, the Idaho media really tanked in terms of just how liberal they had become, and it got worse over the Trump presidency. And I got frustrated. So I think it was in 2020, just as the George Floyd riots, were starting across the country. I just kept asking people, this can't be that hard. It can't be that hard to just say, here's what this side says, here's what this side says, here's what this side says. And you put all that information out there, you gather all the facts that you can, and you just let the people decide what they want to believe from that. So, I wanted to do the news the way that it was supposed to. Look, I have a master's degree, and it has nothing to do with journalism at all. And I just said, this can't be that hard. And it really isn't, Kevin. It's really not hard to just say, here's all sides of the story. I mean, I have people, and you'll laugh at this, who are like, oh, I think the Idaho Dispatch is liberal, and other people are like, oh, it's conservative. And so both sides are saying I'm one or the other, and I'm according to the media, I would be a far-right extremist, but I leave out my personal opinions to the best of my ability, and that's why I started. I just wanted people to have political news without all the BS buried inside of it, and far right this and far this. Just to let people decide for themselves what they want to believe.
Greg Pruitt joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Well, let's talk a little bit about ranked choice voting. You've done a poll. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Proposition 1 by far is what most people seem to be interested in on kind of all sides. Everybody's really curious to see where it was at. Is it going to pass? Is it not going to pass? And kind of going back here just a little bit, Kevin, Governor Little has come out against Proposition 1, right? The top elected official in our state has come out and said, I don't support this thing, and here's why. I am the only news outlet that has made that a headline article. And the only other one that even mentioned it was Idaho Capital Sun, and it was buried in an article about Prop 1 stuff. None of the other news outlets have covered it that I have seen. And I checked a few days ago. I'm just like, how, this is what I'm talking about. This is why people hate mainstream media. And so one of the things I wanted to find out was where is this at? Like, there's never public polling really done in Idaho. And I get that, there's not a lot of trust in polling, but guess what, Kevin? I do my polling differently. I weight it. We use a research company called Zoldak Research, and they did our polling on Proposition 1. And what we told them to do was don't do a push poll, okay? Don't push people in a certain direction. We just want to find out straight up where people are at. And then we did it based on the 2020 presidential turnout. What's the turnout by Republicans? What's the turnout by independents? What's the turnout by Democrats and third party and so forth? And that's how they reached out to the people when they did the poll, was so it's weighted properly. Where you see these polling done in other states, Kevin, where they go heavy on the Democrat side, right, so that they can push the poll in a certain direction. And so we avoided doing any of that kind of stuff, but we really wanted to know where are we at on Prop 1. So before I get to that real quick, we were also able to throw in 2 additional questions. Who do you support for president? And do you like the direction that the state of Idaho is going? So on the presidential question, no surprise that Donald Trump came out 61-31 over Kamala Harris. And then there's some, independents and, some third party and undecided. I don't know how anyone's undecided at this point, but there's still some undecided people, I guess. And that lines up with about what he did in 2020 with Joe Biden. And please keep in mind, we have a plus or minus of 4.9%. That's the margin of error for the polling. In terms of whether Idaho is headed in the right direction, 45.9% said it was headed in the right direction, with 44% saying it's headed in the wrong direction, and 10% saying they don't know either way. So that was kind of an interesting. That's a little bit closer than maybe I would have pictured, given the Trump has 61%, right? So maybe there's some people that aren't happy that are Republicans that maybe aren't happy with Governor Little and his administration. I'm not really sure. Okay, so on Prop 1, again, this is for everyone, a poll is just a snapshot in time from a subset of Idaho's, likely voters. So, take from it what you will. We've used this company in the past for the last gubernatorial election. It turned out to be very accurate at that time. So the vote no comes in at 45.3%. Vote yes comes in at 39.5%, with 15% undecided. And so that's a gap between the no and the yes of 5.8%. So just outside the margin of error. So it's a very close race, it seems, at this point. So that's the main thing there. Do you have any questions about that, Kevin?
I do. Greg, please stand by. We're going to get into this next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, joining us from the Idaho Dispatch. We'll talk politics in a minute. So let's get back to this ranked choice voting, this new poll. For people that are just tuned in, how significant is this?
Well, I think, from the polling, and I've just given you the main top line number there, it seems to be there's a lot of unfamiliarity. And even with the Idaho Dispatch, we'd ask our readers, like, hey, what do you want us to talk about in the next 30 days before the election? And overwhelmingly, everybody was just like, what is this Prop 1? What does it really do? And who's really supporting it, who's not supporting it. And I think one of the interesting numbers from this poll, Kevin, was we had them break it down by party affiliation or independent, as it may be, just to see where each party was kind of leaning from the polling. And so this may be more interesting to your listeners. So when it came to Republicans who answered this poll, 28% were in favor, 58% were against, and 14% were undecided. When it came to Democrats, 74.4% were in favor, 19% were against, and 7% were undecided. And for independents, 50% were in favor, 30% were against, and 20% were undecided. So, I mean, I think for kind of all parties would maybe take that information and have some ability to go, okay, there seems to be a really big divide in the support by the parties. And then we also looked at the unfamiliarity. I won't give you, all the numbers on the unfamiliarity, but basically there's a lot of Republicans who just aren't very familiar with the proposition compared to the Democrats who had a very high percentage that were very familiar with the proposition. And then even independents didn't seem to be all too familiar with it compared to the Democrats that were familiar with it. So that to me, I think, was some really interesting information from that. And, and by the way, Kevin, it's, we also asked, how are you hearing about Prop 1? Well, radio, TV, online news, and your newspaper. So that's where a lot of people are getting their information in addition to social media. So it seems to be, the radio folks and some others are having a big impact either way.
Well, and that is interesting when you think about it. So you talk to the newsmakers, you talk to people like Dorothy Moon and others. What are you hearing from people?
The thing I think, Kevin, that has surprised me, and this is maybe more from my activist hat here, is that you just haven't seen a lot. I haven't seen a lot almost from either side. I'm starting to see billboards pop up, and I think the Prop 1 folks were sending out text messages recently. But there's just not as you remember the Medicaid expansion fight? I mean, there was media running, ads running like crazy, almost from the second they got approved. And now you're just not seeing hardly anything. And at first, like in early September, I thought, well, maybe they're waiting until mid-September or something before the Prop 1 folks go all in. And it just doesn't seem like I'm seeing as much as I would think that I would see on an issue like this. And so I don't know, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot for or against it right now in terms of the amount of spending you typically see on a big issue like this. And this is a ground shattering, proposition. I mean, it will completely change, and some people think for the better, some people think for the worse, but it will completely change our election system. And to see kind of a lack of, maybe people doing anything is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how that plays out as far as the internal challenges within the state Republican Party. I'm wondering if we're going to have a blitz. Remember when this first came out, you had news stories from Republicans, prominent Republicans, saying that, quote, the party has gotten too mean, so that they were, embracing this.
Yeah, but the thing is you have, again, Governor Little has come out opposed. You've had a lot of moderates. In fact, on the Idaho Dispatch website, if you don't mind me plugging this real quick, if you go to idahodispatch.com/RCV, we have a list of all the current lawmakers and where they stand. And I think there's only 2 Republicans who aren't even going to be in office anymore soon that support it, and all the other Republican lawmakers that we've contacted have been opposed. It's overwhelmingly opposed, and that includes people that are considered way more moderate. Down here in eastern Idaho, Representative Rod Furness, for instance. And again, you have Governor Little out saying he's opposed, and the media is not covering it. They were happy to cover it when, it was Butch Otter, right? The former governor. They're like, oh, look, Butch Otter, and you can Google Butch Otter and you might not find Proposition 1 because it wasn't called Prop 1 at the time, but you'll find all sorts of articles about that. And so the media appears to be just squashing anything that they can to not let people know where their current lawmakers and elected officials stand on this really important issue.
Greg Pruitt, how do you see this all playing out? Again, we'll have you in your journalist point of view, not your activist point of view, but what do you believe? What happens if this passes? Does it radically change the state as we've talked about?
Yeah, it certainly is going to have a major impact on the legislature and who can and can't get elected. Again, if you look at the long title form of Prop 1, it says, so you could end up with 20 candidates in a race, and every single one of them can put an R next to their name, and they don't actually have to be affiliated with the party, right? So the parties are basically cut out of the process completely. And so at that point, I think the voters, wouldn't be able to say, well, the party's kind of vetting who's going to represent the party in November, in the primary. And so that will definitely alter things significantly. The pro Prop 1 folks have said that. They believe it will make it much more moderate. It will get rid of, what they call extremists. And I think it will have a big impact. The ranked choice voting, and here's something else. We actually asked people separately, do you support the ranked choice voting aspect of this if it was just ranked choice voting, and also the top 4 primary thing? And from what we're looking at in the polling, the ranked choice voting is, I believe, what may end up sinking this thing in the end. It's too close to call, obviously, but there's even a chunk of Democrats that don't like the ranked choice voting aspect of the proposition.
Greg Pruitt joining us from the Idaho Dispatch. What do you make of, obviously, as you know, as a veteran of so many political battles, what do you make of, after November, it's going to be go time to determine, who's going to run for governor. And of course, if ranked choice voting comes through, as you said, the legislature might give it the Heisman, but, we're going to have another race for governor. I believe the governor is going to run again. Other people have said the lieutenant governor will run. We have Tea Party Bob advocating for, the attorney general, Raul Labrador. Your thoughts on what happens after November? Is it too soon for people to start getting their gubernatorial campaigns together?
No, I think if you're going to take a run at Little, you're going to have to start, pretty, like you said, right after November. You'd have to start campaigning. Just given how the last election went, Kevin, if the people weren't able to, take out Brad Little in the primary after COVID and the lockdowns and stuff, I don't see a path forward for probably anyone at this point, because there's only a handful of people, Kevin, that have the name ID that I think could give him maybe a run for his money, and that would be Labrador and maybe Fulcher. But the governor has done enough, whether he really wanted to or not. He signed the ban on men and women's sports, right? He's signed every gun bill that we've ever helped get to his desk. So he's signed the bills. I'm not saying that maybe he wanted to sign some of those necessarily, but he signed them, right? And so he can campaign on those. He can say that he supported them and so on and so forth. And so I just don't see a path forward right now for someone and that's not just Little, that's just politics in general. Unless there's something really bad that's going on. Take a look at the Biden administration, for instance, like, holy crap, do you want 4 more years of this? That's a question you got to ask yourself. Well, with Brad Little, he hasn't, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, he's not a great governor. He's not a Ron DeSantis. He's just not done enough bad stuff that I think the voters are going to be like, we've got to get rid of him because of this. If you couldn't do it right after COVID, I don't see it happening.
Plus, he's going to have a lot of money and resources as well.
Yeah. There's always that, and he's the incumbent. The incumbent always has a tremendous advantage.
Speaking of people that you hang out with, you're very close with people who are members of the Freedom Caucus, the Freedom Foundation, the published report of the Big Split, the local folks going local, some folks staying with the national group. For those of us that don't live and breathe politics like you do, Greg, what does that whole mean, the whole split that was covered in the Idaho Freedom Caucus? Is that fake news, or is that something significant, sir?
I think it's an unfortunate situation that the conservative movement has found itself in. After the primary, we should have, what I would argue is the strongest conservative, bloc in Idaho history. And it may still turn out that way in terms of how the votes go down. But yeah, this split between, the members of the Freedom Caucus and we're going to end up with two separate blocks here is really unfortunate that, at a time when we should be united, conservatives are divided now. Again, we always seem to kind of do that. We seem to kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. I can't say some other things that I know that are coming down the pike, but, that battle is not over.
Oh, you could say them. You could say them.
I'm sure I can, Kevin. That fight is not over. It's going to continue. There's, potential legal ramifications for some of the stuff that's happening. And again, it just makes me sad. Like I have friends on all sides of this fight, and it's just really unfortunate. And because Kevin, at the end of the day, your listeners, they don't want to see this crap, right? They want to see the conservative bloc moving forward together and fighting for conservative causes, not fighting each other over who owns the name and who owns the logo for the Freedom Caucus and all that kind of. They don't want to see that stuff. They want to see our people move forward in honesty and truth and fighting, the liberal establishment. So.
All right. The headline once again from the Idaho Dispatch. When are you releasing this exclusive poll that, as far as we know, it's the only one done in the state? And I know you have they call you Big Money Pruitt. So glad you're spending your money on that, sir.
Oh, gosh. I wish. Actually, Kevin, your listeners are the first ones that have heard the poll results. We have not released it to anyone other than, kind of our subscribers and our the people that kind of help put this funding together to make this happen. But yeah, we're the only ones that have done any kind of polling like this. I know there's some other groups, I believe, that have done polling on the issue, but they haven't released how they did it, what the results are, or anything like that. So we're the first ones to do any kind of public polling, and that's the headline. But tomorrow will be released online, so everybody can look at the data and see for themselves and glean from it what they want.
Greg Pruitt, we'd love to have you back on a regular basis, brother.
Anytime, man. I'm happy to do it.
We appreciate you, and the next time you're in country, please let me know so we can get together.
Yeah, sounds good, brother. I appreciate your time. God bless.
Now, before you go, thank you for your service, by the way. Well, thank you for your service, Greg. I know we appreciate you being a great veteran. Coming up next, Kent Goldthorpe says he likes red light cameras and he can't wait to install them. Did Kent really say that? Is ACHD going to support red light cameras in Boise? And can you stop it? We'll hear it from the source next. Apparently, you may be able to stop it. That's next. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Stop freaking, call Beacon. They bring you Fox News now on KIDO Talk Radio. Sometimes it's tough to put what you really feel into words. We just put up an article thanking you for supporting local radio. Thank you for all that you do. And, again, it's not one of these things, look at me, because without each other, we wouldn't be here. And, right now, I don't know if this would be the best place to be hanging out in the UN. I think a lot of people would like to hang out at the Boise State game, but we're hanging out at the UN. But if you get a chance, just a few final thoughts. We went over a lot of the pictures, and there are a lot of people that made the gallery, a lot of people that should have made the gallery that didn't, but that have contributed to the success of the program over the years. If you're not familiar with this is the reason why we're in New York, to compete in the NIB Marconi Awards. And, like I said, we're all winners together. So thank you. A great article on our website. Let's go to Kent Goldthorpe now and see if we can make Kent uncomfortable, but he's been salivating at the chance to get another shot at us. So, Kent, good morning.
Oh, gee, just a minute while I wipe off the slobber from my mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, there, I'm done. Hey, before we start in on each other, I got to tell you, when I was donating blood this morning at the Red Cross, we were having a little fun at your expense. Got down to the little if you can't be good, you can be handsome kind of line. And then I told the lady that was draining all my blood out of me that where you were and why. And she said, well, he is good and he is handsome. So there you got your first compliment of the day from the Red Cross.
Well, I don't think I've ever been called handsome since '86. So
well,
I do appreciate that.
I may have started a wave.
Well, thank you, Kent. I will take that as a compliment. So here we are with the red light cameras. You've been blowing up my phone saying there's a way to stop this, or is there? What's going on? We talked to you a little last week about this. Actually, we had you on twice. So it's been a week since Madam Mayor, yes you may, has declared that red light cameras will be infiltrating the streets of Boise.
Yes, she did, or they asked for that licensing agreement. The licensing agreement has been drawn up, ready for signatures, and it will be on our agenda in a couple of hours at ACHD. I have spent a lot of the time the last week on social media and other places telling people that anyone and everyone can ask us to remove that item from the consent agenda, which I call the slam dunk agenda, and move it over to the regular agenda where it's subject to discussion publicly. So far, not a single person has taken me up on that. And I've been approached by politicians, people in other political offices, and others, and seen all kinds of whining and complaining on social media, but no takers. But on the other hand, I have seen literally hundreds of people who are in support of this pilot program, short-lived program, to see if the red light cameras make any difference at all in the absolutely obscene amount of people that run hard red lights every day, all day long. So if you want to come over at 12 o'clock and say, move this puppy onto the regular agenda, because I have all kinds of good, cogent, accurate, and legal information to give you before you decide, please be there.
Well, so let's get back to this. So it's official already.
No, nothing's official until it's signed. We just had a work session about it last week, and the media and others made a lot more out of it than it was. Today is when it becomes official.
And so far, you've said that people have given you the Heisman.
No, not at all. They just haven't responded at all. They complain long and loud, but when I ask them to show up and give their reasons, they don't. And, they claim that it's illegal in other states, which it is. And they say, well, that ought to make it illegal in Idaho right off the bat, which makes me laugh out loud because, and if that was the case, legality in other states, we'd be having abortions in Idaho, and we don't. So anyway, I keep asking. Nobody takes me up.
Well, there we have it. And we will see how it plays out. And do you expect any opposition to this?
I don't know why I would, because nobody has said anything except call me names when I offer them the opportunity to speak about it. I did tell one guy that just because it was illegal in his city doesn't mean it's illegal here. And he wasn't happy to hear that.
Well, I'm surprised there's not a lot of organized opposition.
Frankly, so am I. But the problem is that organized opposition would have to have some basis in fact for their opposition. And right now, I can't see any, especially since this is a temporary pilot program to see if it works. The folks that claim that it doesn't work in California, well, hey, I have no idea what to say to that. They give nothing but their own opinion. And opinions, everybody's got one of them along with the belly buttons.
Right. I think, again, it's funny that nobody has determined that they want to stop this thing.
I think it's funny, too.
They just want to complain.
That seems to be kind of one of the commonalities of almost every issue in our wonderful city, county, state, and country right now. Is complaining is the word of the day.
The word of the day. Again, so without any opposition, you expect this to go through?
Of course, because that's why it's on the consent agenda, because everyone expects it to fly right through. And there have been a lot of times when I have pulled things off the consent agenda and debated and discussed them, and things have changed. I don't see any reason for me to do that. But I will, as I always do, listen intently to anybody with accurate, sincere reasons why we should consider not doing this.
Well, there's privacy, there's lack of due process, there's a lot of issues, Kent.
That has nothing to do with this. The due process thing especially makes me laugh because those citations cannot, by law, be issued unless the sworn officer, after looking at that video, thinks that absolutely that person has been caught dead to rights running a hard red light, and nothing and nobody can convince anyone or any judge otherwise. Then he'll issue a ticket. But if it isn't that cut and dried, they're not going to be tickets issued. So we'll see.
Kent Goldthorpe joining us here to talk about his embracing the red light cameras. So what happens when everybody starts hitting the brakes and we get a lot of rear-end collisions? I mean, our friends at Minnickers will be happy, but what about the rest of us?
Sending me Christmas cards.
Now, I know you're kidding. We don't want.
I know.
We don't want the hate mail too much. Yes.
People, I had someone almost hit me twice yesterday because I've been being so conscientious about what happens when the light turns yellow. So I do expect that the folks that are claiming that there will be lots of rear-enders are probably accurate. But anyway, we got to get used to obeying the law if this goes through.
Do you expect other cities to follow suit?
Oh, I don't know. I don't worry about other cities. Honestly, I don't. I've got my plate is full with stuff going on with Ada County, and but Nampa might, Meridian might. We do have those cameras on a few of the mast arms in the county, and Canyon County started it, that have helped solve some horrific crimes involving Amber Alerts and stuff when they quickly look at license plates and correlate them to people who may or may not be wanted for possible major felonies at that moment. Those cameras have been invaluable. They're not used for anything else. They're wiped immediately. These cameras for the red light pilot will be wiped. But anyone who gets a ticket, of course, there will have to be video evidence if it goes to trial.
All right, Kent, can you hang on for a minute?
Sure.
All right, more coming up with Kent Goldthorpe. Now it's time to talk to our great friend Ron Grant.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Ron has been on talk radio for over 14 years educating folks on how to keep their money safe. Ron, how do you keep your money safe?
Hey, buddy. Well, it's not really hard. The market goes up, we get a chance to go up with it. But if the market drops, we don't lose. And of course, every year that there's a gain, we lock it and go one way. Kevin, I meet with a lot of people each and every week, and most people are going to outlive their money for three reasons. Number one, they didn't start early enough. Number two, they didn't put enough away. But number three, and this is the big offender, they stayed in risk too long. And what do we know about risk? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, variable annuities, oil, gas. These are things that eat up your returns, eat up your fees. We talk about longevity planning, and a lot of people need to start it sooner than later. My clients and I sleep at night, Kevin, knowing that we have done that longevity planning and that we have a lifetime income that we can't outlive. And that's important because that's your dignity money. That's the money that you need to take care of yourself and your family with.
Ron, how can people get a hold of you for the very latest?
Got a great educational website that they can go on 24/7. There's articles there that they can read. There's videos there that they can take a look at. They can download a book, 10 Things to Know About Retirement Income, and that's safermoneyspecialist.com. Or they can call me right here in the Treasure Valley. Let's talk about that longevity planning for you and your family. 208-660-1372.
Ron Grant, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Thank you, Bo. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, I knew that's what you were going to do. Sure.
Okay. Let's go to Mark, the watchdog of Eagle, for Kent Goldthorpe with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for allowing me to ask Mr. Goldthorpe a question. When you discussed this a week ago, I brought up the fact about people rear-ending people because they're following too damn close. What's the rule? A car length for every 10 miles, but people don't do that. I doubt if they even do a car length for, in other words, they probably are going like for every 30 miles a car length behind is what I'm saying. So to me, you're following too close. That's the fault of the person that rear-ends you. But, Mr. Goldthorpe, question. We had a lot of callers here at KIDO that asked Kevin about the problem they dealt with out of state with these lights and how they were set up to be rigged to get revenue for the cities. Meaning, in other words, they would go from a yellow to a red faster than normal, or they were set up in a series where it would cost people to get a ticket easier than it was before they ever installed them. So what I'm asking is, will ACHD work with Boise Police if they allow these cameras to stay in place to regulate how they are being timed and set up to go from green to yellow to red, and how they're set up in a series in a downtown Boise? That's my question. I'll let you answer that while I get off the line. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
That was a great question, and thank you, Mark. The Boise Police Department will not have any control over the timing of the lights. That is 100% the purview of the Ada County Highway District Traffic Control Team. And so that kind of fraud, in my opinion, will not happen. One of the provisions of the licensing agreement is that ACHD can cancel it for any reason at any time. It's kind of like a right-to-work thing. And the commission is very, very concerned that everything happened according to Hoyle, above board, full disclosure, transparency, and no monkey business. And so all five of us, regardless of our political affiliations or anything else about us individually, will be watching this like a hawk.
Well, we appreciate that. And have you started reaching out to vendors yet?
No, we don't have anything to do with it. All we are doing is licensing a small bit of space on the mast arms that have the lights, and the city is handling all of that. And they told us last week that until this is signed, they haven't done anything with putting together any kind of a bid process or a vendor process to decide who the vendor is going to be. But we will be, as a commission at ACHD, we are very interested in watching that process unfold. And I don't expect that there will be any problems with it. I don't expect that there will be any favoritism shown. I don't expect that anyone will be getting a, hey, wink, wink, we want you to make sure this is the result type garbage. And there are people on your commission that are smart enough to detect if any of that happens.
Kent Goldthorpe, we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Hey, remember, I'm there in spirit, standing up, giving you a standing O when you win tonight.
Thank you, Kent. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you.
See ya.
We go to the phones. Tea Party Bob will bring us home tonight on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tea Party Bob.
You know, let me just say something about these red lights. I was down in the valley for 2 days, and I've got to tell you, the red lights are not a problem. The real problem are the idiots on the road today. I'm doing 70 miles an hour, okay, 5 miles over the limit, and people are passing me like I'm standing still. And they're going, weaving in and out and back and forth. I've never seen anything like it in my life since I left New York City. It's crazy. You can do all you want with the lights, my friend, but I will tell you, the real problem is getting the people out there, getting the police out there to patrol those highways, because these people are nuts, and I mean really nuts. scares me to death to go down to that city anymore. Anyway, that's just my rant. And just
well, we heard that you heard it here first. Tea Party Bob is a fraidy cat.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. I'd like to live a little bit longer, but you spend enough time down on those highways, and your chances are going to be a lot less than if you're up here where I am.
Well, is there anything else? Did you talk yourself out?
Oh, I was just really upset. You know, on this ranked choice voting, let me just say this, okay? Bill came out against it because it could hamper him in the next election. You know, this guy's not a dope. You know, and as far as the next election goes, you know, he had a big margin 2 years ago. But most of the people, they didn't realize just how onerous his emergency policies were with this COVID stay-at-home order and closing small businesses. You know, the only reason he did this, and we only had one case of COVID when he did this, mind you. The only reason they did it was to get the bloody federal money. That's all he did it for. You know, I think many of his actions are going to be brought to light in the next election, and that's going to be his Achilles heel. That's about all I have to say, my friend. I hope you win tonight. God bless you, and take care. Be safe.
Thank you, Tea Party Bob. We appreciate you. It's always been a privilege to be with you, and we love the passion. We are merely just the conduits of the reflection of the spirit and the guidance and the wisdom of our great community, and we so appreciate everybody being there. Again, on our website, we have a thank you to everyone who has supported this program, supported this radio station over 100 years. Think about that. Over 100 years, people have been listening to Idaho. We will continue to try to keep up with their legacy. God bless everybody. Keep the faith. And Kevin Miller loves you, even from the United Nations.